Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the February General Finance Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is currently 9:01 a.m. We'd like to confirm that we do have quorum and that we have our CAO clerk and other members of the senior management team here and present today. I'd like to continue to advise that public input is invited on this agenda and others at the following email address, tmlpubliccomment@muskokalakes.ca. And at this point, none was received, correct? Okay. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. I would like to confirm that we did receive a supplementary agenda, item 6A, that Ms. Storey from the Seven Sisters Islands Association and Fairburn Island Association regarding the wharf manager agreements. I'm just getting confirmation that that in fact has been withdrawn. So thank you. At this point, I would like to ask committee if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Mayor Kelley.
Thank you. Through you, I will be recusing from item 7A relating to Riverdale Road. I have a legal interest in the piece of property that is the subject of that debate or discussion.
Okay, thank you. Are there any others? Okay, seeing none, I will also be recusing out an abundance of caution from 9C, which is the wharf manager agreements for Bow Morris and Windermere. Those draft agreements, as noted before, I am part of the landholding group on the adjoining or property beside it. So I will be taking a recusal, and I will turn the chair over to Councillor Burry at that point. Finally, the motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. Voting members shall raise their hands physically until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk. This is not considered a recorded vote. So at this point, I would like to invite our delegation, Ms. Creasor. Would you like to come forward to the podium, please? And welcome. Thank you for joining us on a snowy, wintry day here in Muskoka.
Thank you. Yes, my name's Sharon Creasor. I am the Rector's Warden and Cemetery Manager for St. Thomas, Ullswater, Bent River, which is located at 1019 D Bank Road. And so I'm just going to give you a short history of our church in relation to, because it's noted in the historical record of Muskoka Lake. So anything that we do there actually has to go through historical, I believe. So what's happened at this point, before I get into the history, is that I appeared for the, I would say for the Diocese of Algoma, but essentially for the congregation. A church is owned by the diocese, but we have, as a congregation, have to keep the church open, and diocese doesn't really help us. Diocese, in some extent, is trying to close the small churches. So at this point, I'm lost track of where I am, but anyways, I will say that we appeared before the January Committee of Adjustment meeting because we wish to put a ramp on this project, on this church, to make it accessible. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. We did get the variances required, and at the time of the meeting, I asked for a full or partial refund of the fees, as suggested by someone in the Township of Muskoka Lakes. So that's why I'm here. I'm asking for a full or partial refund of the fees. Before I get into why I'm asking for that, I'll just give you a short history. So Muskoka Lakes was first settled before the land grants. Things were started in the Raymond Valley, which is not too far from D Bank Road. People recognize that this old Indian trail went through a pretty good area of farmland, or area of clay. And so they started to take portions of Raymond Valley, and it wasn't set. And that's why if you look around there, there's some weird lot lines. But in the 1870s, the government opened up the what is now the township of Muskoka Lakes, it would have been Watt Township eventually, to land grants. And most of the big land grants at that time occurred in around 3 Mile Lake because of the quality of the soil. Although along D Bank Road, people took it and they couldn't really tell what the soil was. Some people, if you talk to them, well, some had a better idea. My great-great-grandfather was part of 4 brothers who took land grants along D Bank Road. And my great-great-grandfather, George Creasor, got the best land up against 3 Mile Lake and stayed. The other 3 eventually went, or the whole family died in the Spanish flu. So what happened was they and a bunch of homesteaders, they wanted to have a church. So along D Bank Road, the actual land grant was for Frederick and Mary Richardson. And they donated, it's legal on October 31st, 1882. They donated 132 by, I'm not exactly sure how cheap it was now because we own more. And so a small parcel was granted for the church and the cemetery. And they laid it out. And there were 45 pioneer families on the church roll at that time. It was an original log church. It was concentrated February 28, 1885, and the cemetery was concentrated on January 21st, 1888. In the 1950s and the 60s, the church was refinished inside and outside, so you don't see the logs anymore. We put, and then in 85, a meeting room was added. The church was a viable, ongoing. Okay, so we're moving to this millennium. We have to be accessible according to the church itself, according to the 2005 Accessibility Act. So the ramp project is to make the sanctuary accessible and to give what left of my congregation, which is a seasonal congregation of largely cottagers, ability to get into the building. Now, I asked for a full or partial refund. I did go through the C of A because we talked about some other refunds. The only one that I could find when I was on the C of A was for a secondary application. And it was, I could give you the date, I have it right here right now, for January 2021. And because it was secondary, and it wasn't a mistake of just a municipality, it was a mistake of number of parties, they gave a 50% refund due to the fact that less work happened. And really what I'm asking for now, I'd be happy with a 50% refund because all the money will come back to a project that will make it work. We will struggle now with a permit to get the money to hire a contractor because we are up against all the rich people who can afford. So the prices in Muskoka are ridiculous. We have 33,000 and a 38,000 quote for a ramp. So it's just crazy. Anyways, that's what I'm asking for. Sorry, I kind of ran out of time.
That's okay. And I think at this point, as mentioned, I'll open up the floor for questions. And then as noted later in the agenda, we will have a more fulsome discussion upon the request. So thank you. And I actually appreciated hearing your family history in the area. So thank you. Question, committee. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Through you to, not sure which staff member, but I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for a grant to come from elsewhere than what has been described.
Thank you. CAO Pink, since nobody's putting up their hand, I'm going to turn to you. Is there an opportunity to explore grants for the undertaking they're going through?
Thank you. Through you, I'd like to go over the criteria, the eligibility criteria a little more closely, but I believe they may be eligible for a community grant that they could apply. As you know, council dedicates approximately $25,000 a year to community organizations to apply for said grants. I believe there's a maximum of $2,500. I don't want to put Mr. Cox on the spot, but I see him nodding. So I believe that's a possibility as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. Are there any other questions? Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I just wonder what the totality of the amount is they're requesting as a refund.
Thank you, and that's a great question. Director Huff, would you be able to explain the fees and what the request would be? Sorry.
Yes, the application fee for minor variance was, thought it was 1,400. Sorry, yeah, it was 1,400 for the application fee.
Thank you. So with the 50%, that's
Would be
a
$700.
$700
Yes.
request to waive.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Zavitz, does that satisfy? Okay. Are there any other questions while we have Ms. Creasor here? Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, this is to Creasor. What started the application? Was it because you were near a gravel pit or because you were too close to the road, and which one was picked up after that?
Thank you.
There's a number because we are less than 200 feet wide. I said we're 132. We're actually 152 feet because we had a lane on and a back area. So it's the width of the lot. It's the pit, the plastic pit to the west of us. So the property line's too close, even though the pit is well within the limit of, obviously they dug within the 100 feet, more than 100 feet of, because there's a little bit of a laneway that used to go back to a Creasor property in the back of us. So they sort of respected that laneway. So yeah, it's the extraction, it's the how close we are to extraction. And if it was, the church wasn't there, they would have just dug out the gravel. It's 28 feet of gravel below us. So that's Maine.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
I'm trying to make this a question, but I would like to make a resolution to deal with this today, like as in giving them.
So is that something we can talk about when we get to it later on, when we have our discussion? Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to build on the question earlier about grants, and I don't know, but like Councillor Nishikawa, I'm not sure who's going to be able to respond, but are there opportunities for organizations like this, if it's accessibility focused, are there grants that might be outside of our purview that they could look into? Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, committee. So there are a number of accessibility related grants, both from the township for properties that are within the community improvement plan area. They can apply for a grant for accessibility through that. That's not the case with this particular applicant, but in general, there is funding available for that. There are also accessibility related grants that are available through the District of Muskoka as well as some third-party grants as well.
Thank you. So if Ms. Creasor would like to understand those better, is that something she could look to you to help her kind of guide her?
I'd be happy to
Okay.
connect.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you again for your delegation this morning. And as noted, we will talk about it a little bit later today. Moving on now, we will be on item 7A. And just there we go.
Leave it to the professional.
Okay, there we go. Director Colucci, thank you.
Thank you. Good
Welcome.
morning, committee, and for you, Madam Chair. So the report before you is a report where we had a request to donate land, which is a road allowance, known as Riverdale Road, which is municipally known as 1805 Peninsula Road. The report recommends the denial of this request. Basically, there's two reasons. One is that the existing road is not constructed to municipal standard, and we have a policy, which is policy C-TS03, that requires anyone who would like a road to be made year-round maintenance to bring that road to municipal standard prior to the donation of that road or the year-round maintenance of that road. This road does service 80 residents, but it should be known that within the township, we have 75 other non-maintained roads, 36 seasonally maintained roads, and many private roads that could be affected by a decision to take on this donation and to start year-round maintenance. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Colucci. Committee, I'm not as, we don't see this as frequently on general and finance, but there is a closed document that I'm assuming everybody has read. It's noted within this report. I am going to offer, this is a chance to ask questions, but if anybody would like to go into closed, please remember at this point, this is the appropriate time for us to make that request, and we can do that at the end of today's session so that we can have a more fulsome discussion as to the contents of that. So with that said, I will ask questions for questions only. Councillor Burry.
Thank you, and through you to Director Colucci. You say that in order for the township to take over the road has to be brought up to standards so that we can maintain it. Is there an option anywhere in our guidelines to allow us to take it over, but to not maintain it, as in the other 70 odd roads that we have, and to do this over time? So that's my question.
Okay, Dr. Colucci.
So through you, there's not really anything in our policies that would allow that, though, as you said, we do have 75 other roads that are on road allowances that are non-maintained now. But I think, when you read the letter from Mr. Bennett, the expectation is that, he feels that it should be maintained year round. So that's sort of the reason for the denial in this case.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts. I was about to call you Director Roberts. That's why. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the Director. I think I recalled, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was encroachment onto private property, i.e. Mr. Manette's property for sure. Is there any other private property that encroaches on that roadway?
So through you, the first part, there doesn't appear to be encroachment. It's all on, it's encroaching on Mr. Manette's property. And when the road does turn, there is another encroachment there that it's onto another private property. And of course, we don't know the rest of the road because it hasn't been surveyed, but the first part, we know that because the road goes around the rock outcropping and it does go on private property.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz and then Councillor Kent.
Thank you, and through you to Nick. Good report, Nick. So in that regard, over my 8 years, we've obviously always turned these kind of things down. But I don't think we've ever had one, have we? That's my question, that for the entirety of the road is owned by one person. I'm not so sure if that's a wrinkle, but perhaps that's something we should be looking at. Can you speak to that in terms of, am I wrong? This is unique in that someone owns the whole road and there's 80 property owners serviced by it?
Director Colucci, can you clarify, please?
Through you. So, even this Riverdale Road is not only owned by Mr. Manette, it's actually, there's at least one other encroachment on there, and there may be others other than it's not been surveyed. And I know that some of the other private roads are smaller, so they access 3 or 4 properties, and they could all be contained within one property. But I'm not actually too familiar with any of the other private roads because they haven't come forward with a request in a survey.
So just for clarification, I think the one portion that Mr. Manette, that's just only one portion of a longer road. Just, I think that's the clarification.
Right, that's correct. So that the first part is maybe, 25% of the all of Riverdale Road, because it goes back further onto through lake properties.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
And
you.
part of that road is on municipal road allowance, and part of it is on other private properties as well, as far as I understand.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kent.
Thank you. And through you to Nick, I have two questions. First question is, you made a comment about we have lots of municipal roads that are unmaintained by the municipality. This with 80 residents on it, is that the high end of that list? I think it probably is. I was just wondering how that stands. And then I have a second question, which is, I can wait on that. Let me ask that one first, if that's okay, Chair Mazan.
Yes, yep.
Okay, so for you,
Excuse me.
so yeah, I mean, this is one of the larger private roads that we have in our municipality. And a lot of the other ones are smaller sections of roads that service 2 or 3 residences only.
Okay, my second question relates to, we seem to have made a decision in your recommendation to not take this donation on, but they didn't ask us to maintain the road at this point in time, was my understanding. All they were asking for was to take the donation on. Can we not separate those two items? And would we normally take on a donation like this? I think that's an important point that, I mean, I know the people on Riverdale Road have said these are two separate issues. So I was just wondering, you bundled them together. Thank you.
Okay,
So
Director
for
Creasy.
you, I mean, council policy does allow the acceptance of gifts. But if you read Mr. Minette's letter, it's assuming that we will be providing year-round maintenance with this donation. So, we had meetings with Mr. Minette and also other residents along that property. And, this started with a request initially for us to do year-round maintenance on that property. So, the group was told that if they wish us to do year-round maintenance, we have a policy, they need to come back, according to the policy. So the policy requires them to do a cost estimate to bring the road up to year-round, up to our standard, and then have council agree that once they bring the road up to year-round standard, that we would start doing year-round maintenance. Now, the flip side to that from a staff perspective is that doing year-round maintenance on that large of a road might require additional resources. So we'd have budgetary implications, either to hire contractors or to hire additional staff to complete that year-round maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before I read the resolution? Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Bosemarth.
I don't know if Mr. Clucci can answer this because I don't think he was here at the time, but Bruce Wilson Drive, the busiest road in Port Carling, was offered as a donation and we turned it down. And part of that was we asked them to put, I think it was over $60,000 before we would even accept it. So why would we accept this without it being upgraded to our standards?
And for you, so I am a little familiar with that because I did review the file, because the owner of that property has come forward again about donating it. So, we had a discussion and they, at that time, they were willing to do the work that was requested. And we're just waiting for them to come back again and delegate to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bosemarth.
Yeah, I'm just looking for some clarification. My understanding is that the segment of the road that's owned by Mr. Minette is about 1 kilometer or something around that length. And that's what we're talking about. The rest of the road goes all the way up the peninsula to the top on one side, it comes all the way down on the other side. And it's quite an extensive road. So what we're talking today about is only the 1 kilometer, I'm going to call it 1 kilometer, that Mr. Minette owns. Is that correct?
For you, yes, that's correct. So Mr. Minette's donating the portion, which he owns that first portion of the road, which is about, just under 1 kilometer.
And if they had come to us saying that they would be willing to upgrade it to our standards, then in all likelihood, we would be willing to take it over as a year-round maintained section of that road, which would be just the first section of quite a long road. Am I
Right,
correct on that?
And through you, so yes, our policy requires that they would bring that up to municipal standard, and that they would pay the cost of that. I mean, the first step is to get the cost estimate. The second step is to come to council and say, okay, we're willing to do it. Does council accept this road for year-round maintenance? And if council does accept that, then they could proceed with the work. And once it's completed to the township satisfaction, then we would do the bylaw to assume that road for year-round maintenance.
And if I
Thank
may
you.
ask subsequent, and is there an option for the township to say, I'll take the road under the understanding that we will not do seasonal maintenance on it and leave it in the condition that it is?
Well, we're, and through you, so we're maybe getting a little into the legal opinion, but I think that opinion is saying not to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your assistance there. I was trying to understand at what point do we need to go into closed. So thank you for handling that nicely. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Through you to, I'm going to say Mr. Pink. Procedurally, if this is turned down today, does it prohibit the application coming back for a number of months?
Thank you.
With a new twist on it?
Okay.
Thank you. Through you, I look to the clerk to confirm, but my understanding of the procedural bylaw, if a request or application or matter is, a decision is made to make an alternate decision, I believe we have to wait a minimum of 3 meeting cycles, I believe, or 3 months. Is that
Okay. Director Best for us.
That is correct. So after it's been passed at council, so after it's ratified at council, another 2 subsequent meetings, so 3 in total.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to read the resolution and then we can open up for any kind of discussion or comments. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that council respectfully declines the request to donate land as outlined in the letter from Mr. C. James Minette dated December 22nd, 2025, attached as Appendix 1 to report OPS-2026-004. So at this point, I'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I fully support staff's proposal on this subject. I just have a question, a follow-up question. On the asset management plan, I know it was key to me for the director at that time to list those properties. Are the properties that are past the township road in that report? And if they're not, if you don't know, don't worry about it. If it's not, we should get it on it.
Thank you.
So through you, we don't have an extensive list of private roads currently. I mean, we have a list of our owned roads that are non-maintained, but we do have on the district's GIS, they do have a list of all the roads, so we can see them, but we don't have within our asset management plan a distinct list of all the private roads.
Thank you. So just to comment then.
Yes.
I know that the asset management plan states that the township should consider assuming responsibilities for these I'll call them cottage maintained roads. With that said, I think it behooves the owners of the back part of this road, the 80, to approach Mr. Minette to actually get that property donated to their association, so that in the future, if we ever do that, they'll be in a better negotiation position or position to get this done. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, Councillor Bosworth?
Yes, I thank you. Director Colucci, how much of a precedent do you think this would be? You mentioned we have quite a large number of roads similar to this, not necessarily with as many owners. Is this something that we would worry about? I would expect, once this happens, you'd have a flurry of activity.
Director Colucci?
Through you, I think we have on average, about 10 of these requests per year. And, each time there is a request, we identify the policy and, let them know the policy. So, thus far, we haven't had anyone actually come forward after receiving the policy with a cost estimate. But, I think that, yeah, it could lead to a large flood of people because, if we have 10 per year, then that could be a lot of people every year. That could be a large capital influx.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or discussion points? Okay, I have read the resolution. I will now call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, seeing none, that does carry. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Director Colucci, for helping guide us through that. It's always good to hear the details and behind and the hard work and the heavy lifting. So thank you. Okay, welcome back, Mayor Kelley, and welcome to the podium, Director Best Sararas. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, committee. Before you is a high-level overview of the 2025 Legislative Services Year-End Review. The report is for information only and highlights key activities and outcomes from the past year. Legislative Services supports effective, transparent, and accountable operation of the township. In 2025, the department continued to provide council and committee support, records and privacy management, elections administration, land and agreements, and corporate communications, while also supporting all municipal departments through coordination and guidance. I'll just touch on a few of the highlights from the report before you. The team did review and update the council remuneration and expense policy, published 49 council and general finance committee agendas. 199 municipal documents were remediated to meet accessibility requirements, and the township filed its 2025 accessibility compliance report. The Strong Mayor Powers training and implementation was completed. 34 FOI requests were processed and 1 appeal was successfully defended before the IPC. Staff managed over 40 applications for road and shore road allowances, licenses, acquisitions, and land disposition, totaling approximately $700,000 in revenue. A refreshed township website was designed and launched. The township joined Instagram in 2025, which did just surpass 700 followers this last week. And online engagement increased significantly with public submissions through Engage Muskoka Lakes up nearly 200% from 2024. Looking ahead to 2026, some of the priorities for the year ahead include continued rollout of electronic records management and new privacy policies, development of the next 5-year accessibility plan, advancing the surplus land and review process, enhancing communications through digital, audio, and print initiatives, and of course, preparing for and administering the 2026 municipal election. In closing, 2025 was a year of strong service delivery, modernization, and increased public engagement. As we continue forward, the Legislative Services Department remains committed to supporting council, strengthening governance, and providing clear, accessible service to the community. I will note that I do have the entire team here, so if there are any questions, I might defer to the experts in our area, and just want to say thank you, and I'm here for any questions. We all are.
Thank you very much. I think we're just, it's just an information report, right? I just wanted to be sure because you have left. Yes, thank you. At this point, if there's any questions or comments, I will open up the floor. Councillor Burry and then Councillor Zavitz.
A comment. Well done. Well done. This is a group that, while doing their job is largely unseen and unthanked, and do a tremendous job in supporting the other staff members of the township and council. And as a largely unseen and unthanked group, I'm just going to say personal thank you.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Councillor Burry. Councillor Zavitz.
Well, thank you for that. And I certainly second that emotion. Great group of people. I see them behind Crystal. They're supporting her all the way. And certainly they've certainly supported our efforts over the last year. And I must say, I really do notice an incredible improvement in the way we communicate as a corporation to our constituents. So I want to thank them all for just a great job and being there when we phone. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Mayor Kelley?
Thank you. And through you, I was just going to add one thing. Great team, great to watch how they work together, which is phenomenal, real team there, but also a great team with the rest of the other teams in the organization. I'm really pleased to see that kind of team play run through all of the different departments and work well together, and frankly, just a joy to be around. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I actually have two questions. The first question actually is to do with the properties that, sorry, I opened up the wrong report here. Just give me 2 seconds. For the acquisition and disposition. And I think I saw something recently that we are starting the process of looking for a realtor of record. So I just think it would be helpful to better understand some of the work that's been happening in behind the scenes, where we're at, and what we can maybe look to understand over the next, I could say 6 to 8 months. Thank you. And welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. Thank you for your question. I think a great first start is I've worked with MPACT in the district and have created a layer on GeoHub that displays all township-owned properties. Not to toot my own horn, but we are the only municipality in the district that has this feature. So it was certainly quite the accomplishment. I was actually congratulated for getting to this point through MPACT. It is a little bit of a struggle. So that was a great first step. You may have seen that we have released an RFP for realtor services that was released last week. It closes the first week of March. So once that's completed and that contract is awarded, I do see us working with the realtor to sort of dive into a review of township-owned properties, review them at a staff level, obviously, and with the realtor, and then coming forward to council at that point. We are working on our shore road and road allowance closure policy. I hope to bring that forward next month. So that's something exciting as well. And yeah, that's where I've been at.
Well, first of all, thank you. And second of all, toot your own horn. That is something that I think most of us, and then maybe picking up on some of the comments, there's a lot of hidden in behind the scenes work that seems easy on paper.
Yes.
And yet much harder to actually implement and execute. And I think this is a really good example of that. I think it was your dogged determination to get us to that
time.
point.
Yeah. I mean, I wish you see it a lot things are easier said than done. And, you know, you like to be like a fast food restaurant and have things done like the same day, but yeah, they take time and just like everything else. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good work. My second question is actually focused on communications. And I did note, and there has been a tremendous focus and improvement as noted in the social media aspect, space, I would say, and on our digital platforms. One of the ongoing and continued focuses is in the absence of the newspaper. There's a lot of people that this space isn't something that they go to all the time. Is there, or could there be comment or thought as to how we reach or other mechanisms to try to reach a broader audience? Are those things being contemplated?
I'm going to turn it over. This is my first time on the stand, by the way. Stand.
It's a friendly crowd. It's a friendly crowd.
So through you, we are exploring radio ads as well. So getting to those people that don't have access to the internet, and through all of our engagement sessions or anything we're doing across departments, we are making sure that we're touching all of the, or checking off all of the boxes in terms of having accessible printed materials, online materials. So anyone that can come into the township, they can access surveys or call one-on-one with our directors, whomever is leading this study, for example, but we are trying to touch all avenues in terms of digital print materials as well as radio. So people who are driving to work or driving back from work just have it on at their home. So exploring all avenues to kind of touch base with everybody through there.
Well, thank you. And I attended a session at Roma recently on the communications piece and recognized that every single municipality is grappling with this. The lack of access to the print media. The radio is a great example, and just trying to find new and innovative ways. It sounds to me like you're well on your way, trying to understand how to expand that reach with shifting conditions. So thank you. Yep. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Yes, we've come a long, long way since I first set step in this room on communication and clear messages. I just want to confirm my understanding for that audience that doesn't have access to internet and that they're more than welcome to come in, and staff would help them given the reports, actually walk them through the reports. So if someone's listening, feel free to come in and go to the desk and say help.
Yeah, or give us a call, and
Yes.
we're happy to do it over the phone as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? Thank you very much. We will be moving on to item 8B. Director Donaldson, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, committee. So previous to 2025, Township held all its funds in our current account with the bank. In March 2025, following council's approval and in accordance with section 418 of the Municipal Act and policy CFS04, the treasurer initiated an investment portfolio. A total of $15 million was invested, with $10 million transferred to CIBC Wood Gundy and $5 million to one investment, while day-to-day operating cash continues to be held in our Scotiabank account. At December 31st, the market value of the township's investments was $16.36 million. Total returns for the year were approximately $1.9 million. Consisting of just over $1 million in the one investment, $287,600 from Wood Gundy, and $531,375 in interest earned through Scotiabank. The one investment Canadian equity portfolio generated strong performance in 2025, reflected equity market growth, while CIBC Wood Gundy provided stable, low-risk returns through a laddered fixed income portfolio designed for liquidity and capital preservation. The Scotiabank balances continue to earn interest at bank prime less 1.8%. The $5 million invested with one investment represents 33% of the township's invested funds, which exceeded the current policy, which shows that 25% can be invested in the pool equity fund. So as a result, staff are recommending an amendment to our policy to increase the allowable equity allocation to a maximum of 50%, aligning the policy with our current investment strategy. In addition, staff are also looking at exploring adoption of the prudent investment standard under the Municipal Act, which would allow for broader diversification and improved risk-adjusted returns through professional external management for our longer-term investment holdings. Council, if they choose not to amend the policy, then we would reallocate our investment portfolio to align with the current 25% limit. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So committee, I do have a resolution, but I am going to open it up to questions first, and then we can have comment after. So do we have any questions? Councillor Bosemarth.
Thank you. So if we had 50% in what is essentially in the one, I think it's in the one account, capital ONE, those are basically equity-based investments. And does that mean 50% of our total investment fund? What percentage of our total investment fund would that represent?
Director Donaldson.
So through your chair, so we made an initial investment of 15 million. So if we were to go back in time, then they would have allowed, the policy would have permitted us to send at least $7.5 million of that to the investment. We sent 5, which was 33% oversight on my part. So now I think the one is performed quite well. And I think we've got an opportunity to perhaps, while I would temper expectations that I don't think 21% is going to be the annual expectation for that fund. They've got a 10-year return of just over 10. I think it was around 11%. I think that bodes well for where we could park our money that would actually work for us better than in the bank.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Boseworth. And then Councillor Kent, I see you.
Equity markets can be fickle and they can take some very significant drops. 2008 being an example. Another very short-term drop was COVID, but those numbers were very significant. I think, I don't.
Is this a question?
Council,
I just want to confirm the question.
yes, it is. Sorry.
Okay.
What is your assessment of that risk for us, and how would we feel if we had a 20% drop in that investment, and how would and if it took us 10 years to get out of it or 8 years to get out of it, what would that mean to us?
Okay, so risk.
Yep. Thank you. Through you, Chair. So the decision that I took in March to keep 10 million with CIBC Gundy in a low risk ladder portfolio was because of our short-term cash needs. I thought that, we're going to need more liquidity. We're not really thinking really long-term for a lot of our cash holdings, our reserves, because we've got a lot of capital needs in the short term. That being said, I thought it was balanced that we would be thinking long-term. So to your point, while there's volatility in the equity market, no doubt, I think one takes a bit of a more conservative view than, they're not putting all of their equity funds in, there's Canadian equities. So I would say that we should be tempered, and the request to go to 50% doesn't mean we should go to 50%. It's just that the policy would permit us and would keep us on the side with where we are now. But I think where we are now, I think we're balancing risk with short-term needs, with the majority in fixed incomes, coupons, strip bonds, those types of things, as opposed to putting too many eggs in the basket of equities and more volatile investments. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I'm trying to get to the point where I think we've got a good mix right now. I think it's worked well for us this year anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Kent. Oh, sorry, just a second. Councillor Boseworth, one last supplemental.
So just let me make sure I fully understand how this would operate. So we could take it up to 50%, but it would be your position's responsibility to look out to future cash needs and adjust the mix between the laddered money market type investments versus equity investments to ensure that we're not going to be running out of money or having to sell our equities when the prices are very low. Is that correct? Is that how you would imagine it being managed?
Okay, Director.
Through Chair, yes. That's
correct. Councillor Kent.
Hi, thank you, and through you. I don't have any problem with the recommendation, but I do have a problem maybe with the timing of the recommendation. I am quite concerned about the market. One question I had for you was, you said, does the one investment have the equities in US and Canadian? I'd be happier if it was all in Canadian right now than in US. And I was just wondering what you said. It was a clarification. And two, I was just wondering whether you think maybe the timing of this decision might wait till we get through the next, whether you've evaluated whether the time, you're buying at the high, or are you going to have a 20% correction? And so my concern is really timing rather than long-term decision. And I realize if it's long-term, you wouldn't focus on short-term timing, but it can be very material given the outlook for the market.
Director Donaldson, 2 questions in there.
So through you, Chair. So just to clarify, it is a Canadian equity fund. So
okay, that's better.
Canadian equities, yeah. And I will leave it to committee and council in terms of the recommendation. I think it was made in light of the fact that where we are currently, where 5 million of 15 million is currently sitting with one. If council would be prepared or wish to keep the policy as it is, then we can certainly move money out of the one investment at this time and put it and add it to our laddered portfolio. And that would, I no issue. That would be committee's direction.
So just one follow-up. Are you recommending we add another 2.5 million to move it from the ladder to the one, or is it 5 million more?
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Chair. So I'm not necessarily recommending we move any money at this time. We would keep the portfolio as it is. The change in the policy would just bring us on side with where we are today. Because we currently have more than 25% invested with one of the total $15 million portfolio.
Okay. Okay, that's a big difference because I don't have any problem with you changing that, but I do have a problem potentially with your timing of moving money into the equity markets at this point in time.
Okay, so I think it would be helpful to read the resolution because I think that will help. And because I'm thinking in this that the timing, this is just allowing Director Donaldson to do the job and be within the current framework of where we're at. Is essentially what I'm reading here. So I'm going to read the resolution. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that Appendix A of Investment Policy CFS-04 be amended to allow up to 50% of the investment portfolio to be held as pooled funds by one investment. So I'll open up the floor now for any comments, questions. Councillor Burry.
Thank you, and through you. First of all, I thank Mr. Donaldson for the work that he's done in getting us to where we are. And I strongly am in support of changing the policy. I do have a question. Why, if we're going to change the policy, did we not go the next step, which would be in the policy to allow prudent person investing as opposed to legal list? So currently we're part of what is called the legal list, which is part of the Municipal Act, and we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But there is a possibility to allow municipalities to put part of this portfolio into what is called prudent person. And that would be the next step in this evolution, which allows a very capable and competent money manager. So the other piece that many people may not know is one investment actually has hired RBC Global Asset Management, if we're not allowed a commercial, but they're Phillips Hager and North subsidiary, to do this investing. And they're a very long-term bond-related portfolio manager, or mostly bonds, but they've got some very, very good equities. So it's no longer a small group of a couple of people running this municipal portfolio. It is actually a world-class investment manager making decisions that are not around market timing. You know, they know how to shift. They know how to move around, and they're doing that work on our behalf, so we don't have to decide what and where. And where I do commend Mr. Donaldson is getting the right amount of money into the longer term portfolio for those funds that we just don't need. You know, we don't need them for 5 years, so we can put them out, but we do have them allocated. It's not like we're never going to use the funds. This is all part of how the asset management plan puts together, and where again I'll commend staff for having brought us a very, very long way. So really my only comment is, if we're going to open up the investment policy, and I don't want to derail it for today, but the next time we open the policy to do this, I suggest that you add the prudent person, so that we have even more flexibility within the organization to allocate the funds in the most appropriate place as we move forward. You know, baby steps, I get it, but certainly what we've experienced has been terrific. We can't expect it to happen every year, but we can expect our manager to outperform the market, because this is not an index fund. These are people making active management decisions, and will likely not have some of the junk that's in the index in the portfolio.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Did you want to comment, or you're just listening?
No, yeah, no, Chair, it was noted in the report that is something that we will be looking at, and we would have to bring a bylaw forward and take the necessary steps to do that, but it's certainly on our radar.
Thank you. Mayor Kelley?
Thank you, and through you, I think we're crossing a line a little bit. We have an extremely capable Director of Finance, does a great job, who is responsible for the investment and the returns. I know we're all, eager to show that we are little Warren Buffetts here, but the fact of the matter is, we've got an extremely competent person in charge. We deal with policy, and to the extent policy needs amending, there will be something coming back for us to consider. At this point in time, there is not. I think we need to thank Director Donaldson and encourage him to keep up the good work. And he knows we're watching. Thank you.
Thank you. No? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I have read the resolution, haven't I? Yes, I did, right? Yes. I've read the resolution, so I will now call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you very much. Committee, I am going to continue on. We're making some good headway right now, and then probably after this report, we'll take a break, okay? 9A. Welcome, Chief Morale.
Good morning, Chair. Through you to committee. Good morning. The first report before committee is a report that highlights, and it's a report brought to you as a recommendation through the Fire Master Plan, was that the fire chief continue to monitor fire response times goals. In this report provides an annual update on the fire department's response time performance and progress towards the NFPA 1720 objective of achieving a 14-minute response time for 80% of incidents in accordance with the council resolution. One thing I'll highlight in the report, there's a bunch of charts that illustrate how we're performing. In chart number 1, you will see a gradual increase in the time it takes for our response to occur in the township from 2021 to 2025. In chart number 2, you'll see in there response times per station. There has been some question around why certain stations aren't showing in this chart, and I can quickly add that this is due to the way that we gather the data, and I can get into that if council has more questions. In chart number 3, there's response times per day part. Not surprisingly, most of our responses occur between noon to 6 p.m. In chart number 4, you'll see response times per day of the week. This is interesting only in that we do see our increased responses happening on the weekend, but we do see a flatlining of our overall response time throughout that period. Chart number 5 has response times per month. You will see what we call the big hump, which is the seasonal hump that we've always seen. It has pretty much stayed steady that August is our busiest time, and yet you can see very different response times, and there's some reasoning behind that, but we would need more data in order to prove that out definitively. And then chart number 6 shows response time per incident type. This being the first report of its type, I would caution council to make any kind of recommendation or suggestion based on this data. This is just for information at this point, and we do hope to come back to council to give more of these reports. I now stand for questions.
Thank you. So again, there's no resolution information, so questions or comments. Councillor Nishikawa and then Mayor Kelley. And then Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. My question would be through you to the chief. I'm a little bit concerned about juggling these reports and the charts and things. Because first off, it concerns me that our response time is not meeting what I had thought we were moving towards. But I'm wondering if there could also be another chart about, how many firefighters did we have back in 2020, for instance, versus 2026? Because I'm thinking that amount of firefighters may have meant the reduced time that it's taking. And I guess, also because I just have to, there's a few things in here, but I also would like to see, in some cases, because we just recently had a train derailment in Torrance, and there's a lot of information. So I find that very challenging, and I just wanted to know at least how many firefighters did we have And how many do we have today? And is that in response to what these numbers mean?
Chief Morrell?
Through you to the council, absolutely, we can include how many firefighters we had. And another metric that we do not include in our response time target is the number of firefighters that arrive first on scene. So typically a target like this would include 14-minute response time, not just the first apparatus, which our first apparatus always has at least 2, would also include 6 members on that first response time apparatus, because that's the target. But we can give you an overall number of firefighters from that point to now. I think we do highlight that in the annual report, but I can pull that information forward for council, and I can either send it to you via email or I can present a different report. It's up to the wishes of this body.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelley?
Thank you, and through you. And, first off, congratulations on leading your crew. I think they do a terrific job, and you do as well as their leader. I know everything I've been reading indicates that recruitment to volunteer fire services is a huge challenge, not just in Muskoka, not just in Ontario, but across the country and probably elsewhere. 2 questions. The NFPA 1720 objective of a 14-minute response. Does NFPA 1720 distinguish between rural, suburban, and urban, or is it just one number plastered over the entire smear of people groupings?
Yeah, through you, Chair, to the councillor, to the mayor. Thank you for the question. Yeah, it's a great question. In the 1720 response time standard, there are different metrics, and it's based on density of population. So it's how many people per square mile is the terms that they use. We obviously translate it into square kilometer. And there is what they call like the metro standard, where a full-time response is under 6 minutes. And that is typically, I'm trying to remember exactly, 4 firefighters in 6 minutes for the full-time standard. And then you get into the suburban standard, it's like 10 firefighters in 10 minutes. The rural standard, 14 minutes, 6 firefighters. And then what we call the remote standard, which is just travel time from the fire hall, is your gauge. The best practice needs a lot of refinement. That's part of the reason that we want to start reporting it to bodies like this, is that so that this body could then say, well, we want to know about the best practice, but we're going to set our own best practice is kind of the reason why we report it. It is a known best practice, and there are some volunteer fire departments that are able to achieve it. But as I stated, when we first brought this target in, it's best to give people a goal. It could be a goal that we aspire to get to, but then we can make our own progress towards that goal over time. That was kind of the reasoning for why we went down this road. But thank you for that question. There is some different versions of this.
Thank you. Mayor Kelley?
And thank you. And just one follow-up. I don't know what other is, and I couldn't find a definition for it in here. I'm guessing some of that, a bunch of that is false alarms, but I don't know. On the chart 6.
Through you to the mayor, yes. So alarms are on their own. They have their own column.
Oh.
Other would be things that are really hard to capture, what we call pre-fire conditions. Sometimes if there's smoke that's created in the house, but it hasn't evolved into an actual fire. Outdoor fires that are non-compliant. So when we go to people's fire pits and they don't have a burn permit during the day. There's a varied amount of things that are in those public hazards. Sometimes it's lines down, but you will see that we separated out lines down from that other, and typically other would have that included in it. And the reason we did that, it's to pinpoint some areas that we can work on. So you'll see hydro's on its own. We are going to work with hydro closely, and we may even bring back to this body based on how that conversation goes. We might bring back to this body options to fee for service for hydro lines, which some other communities have looked at, in order to drive some of these call types down.
Thank you.
So you mentioned alarms, and I did see the column, but I didn't realize those are all false alarm, or are they false alarms?
They're all alarms, all alarm calls of all types. So sometimes they could be a false alarm, sometimes they could be a validated alarm.
But if they're a validated alarm, then there'd be a fire in the other category where they are, I'm missing something.
Well, in some cases, that's a great question. So it's very nuanced. So the way that we determine a false alarm, it's either a neglected alarm, meaning that it was preventable in some fashion. That's a false alarm in our opinion. If there's an alarm where there's a human perceived emergency in the building and it turns into being not a call that would have been an alarm call, then we count it as just an alarm call.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. And the real question is, when the second largest group of calls are alarms, false or otherwise, you're a volunteer fire service member, and the last 5 calls you went to were false, are you going to respond as quickly or as thoroughly? I mean, it's human nature. Are you going to go, another false alarm?
You nailed it.
And that would work against your 14-minute timeline, I would think, eventually. So the bigger question is, are you satisfied that we're doing enough to penalize people whose alarms become habitually a problem?
Through you to the mayor, my ears are ringing with people that are very upset over the fees that they receive from us in terms of the alarm category. That is one mechanism that we've used to educate people. The other mechanisms we use are our public education events. Are we doing enough? We're trying. We're working with those vendors that are in those properties, trying to work with them on making sure they put a more robust system in place. It's very evident to us that there are more robust systems out there, hotels and schools and other institutions, like even our own. We don't have a lot of false alarms in our buildings, and they're alarmed. Therefore, there are better alarm systems that are out there, which would see that number decline as well. So we're trying every avenue to try to get that alarm number to go down, so it's valid alarms when we go. That's one part of it. To answer your question, Mr. Mayor, you made a really good point. Complacency builds in people when they get 10 calls and 9 of them are alarms and 1 is a real call. And that complacency can really be a problem for a volunteer fire service. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, to our chief. Chief, thanks for working the data. I love the fact that you're being proactive and coming forward to us with all of this information. I have two questions, if I may, Chair. First of all, Chief, you had me at table 1. I couldn't go any further. Further to the mayor's question about for the 14 minutes. I guess my first question of 2 would be, is 14 minutes even a realistic yardstick or measurement for the township of Muskoka Lakes, of which your responsibility lies? I mean, are you more comfortable at 18 or 22, given that we've been sliding in the wrong direction since 2021 when it was recorded? So can you speak to that, sir, before I have a second question?
Yes.
Through the chair to committee and to the councillor, thank you for that question. I felt that it would have been inappropriate to not show a known best practice when we first set this target. It could look like we're setting a target that we can only meet. I don't think the 14-minute response time is an achievable response time, in that most of our, by way of the data, we could see that most of our assembly times, that's the time it takes for our firefighters to actually get to the station, are averaging about 9 or 10 minutes. So that would mean that every fire station would typically have to be about 6 minutes travel time away from every call. So we do know that we're kind of on a back foot situation in terms of the response time. What I have seen some communities do is they set 2 different levels. One is the showing progress towards the 1720 goal, and then showing a community progress line where we think it's an achievable amount. We also have to look at solutions. If we don't put any solutions in place, we're just trying to make this better year after year. If we put solutions in place, let's measure the solution and let's see if that solution will actually achieve us some more response time. And by that, I mean, it could be putting people on shifts for certain kinds of events where we see that there's going to be more call volume. It could be changing dispatch, which we are doing now, looking at different reporting mechanisms so that people can see people attending to these calls. So what we have right now is in the fire station, when a member arrives, they can actually see the other members arriving if they have their app on their phone. That has actually improved our response time, because you can actually see how long you have to wait for that next member to get here. You can call in on dispatch and we know that a truck is going to be rolling. That helps us resource appropriately. Those kinds of small little slight changes over time can have a real impact on our response times. And then looking at the entirety of the data, sorry, Counselor, just another point I want to make. You've got that seasonal uptick. That's really the area where if we concentrate on that seasonal uptick and we figure out where we need to staff people and we put them in place, if we can make measured result there, then we can actually drive those times down on the average across the board. Hopefully that answers your question.
Councillor Zavitz, did you have another?
Certainly does. Yes, thank you. And a secondary question. And again, so respectfully, I'm going to ask this question. Having just completed the fire hall study, which of course was fairly contentious and laborious, and we got to the finish line on that. I want to say, where was this document? But that's not really my question. My question is, what's ringing in my ears about the review and all the study and scrutiny that we put on that study, if you will. I do recall the 14 minutes, and the 14 minutes rings very true to my brain in terms of what we were talking about. I wonder if you could speak to just generally, you crafted that doc, given consultants. Can you speak to this report sensitive to that fire hall study? Because, here we are axing 3 fire halls, and people are, first thing I'm looking at is it's taking us longer than ever to get to a fire, and we're closing down fire halls. One's opposed to the other. So can you speak to that in a general sense? Public's watching. I don't know.
Sure. Through the chair to the counselor, not a loaded question at all. Well, what I will say is what I said during the consultation on the fire halls. Fire halls and fire trucks don't put out fires. People do. And why this matters is that when you look at, you've got one work group, and this is why you're only seeing one area for Raymond Windermere. That's actually one work group that gets paged. When a fire occurs or an incident occurs in that area, that one work group gets paged, and they decide, those members, which hall they're closest to respond to. Then they wait for that second member and then respond from there. If you were to take those people and put them into one building, it could be said that they will get out the door a little quicker because all 4 members could go to one hall. The first truck could be complemented with 2 and left the hall, which could cut down on your travel time, depending on where the call is. So it's all up in the air. When you have work groups that are separated in 2 different buildings, I expect that as we align and right size and put our stations in the right spot, our members are going to go to the hall quicker, and they're going to complement those trucks and then leave that station a little faster. That said, all of this is up in the air based on where the members live. If they live close to the fire hall, then obviously assembly times are a lot lower. If they work closer to the fire hall, these assembly times are a lot lower. It's the nature of the volunteer model. What we have done, on top of some of the other things that have been mentioned, we have allowed members to respond to different fire halls. So if they work in Torrance, but they live in Raymond, they have gear in that other fire hall area. So they can actually respond to that hall and respond with that truck. And we've made it possible so all of our members are uniformly trained and the trucks are set up the same, so we can achieve a better response from that capacity. That's how we've tried to circumvent some of these problems. But in front of you today is a result of the old legacy system, which was 10 fire halls, 7 response districts, often splitting members' attention between 2 fire halls. So I think as we move forward to the 7 station model, we will see alignment. These numbers may increase. I expect they'll decrease though.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your leadership and all the great ideas and digging into the weeds to solve our problems. It's fantastic. I'm like everyone else, that 14 minutes. It's just a number. At the other end, there's someone waiting for life-saving or property-saving action. And in your report, you say that for the past 5 years, we've been progressively continue to move away from this 14 minutes. I'm thinking that I'm suggesting or asking you, that we need to do possibly something now to help you get the data, because in your report, you say that you're going to continue to study this and for future planning in a response to this measurement. I'm thinking that is it urgent? Like you have your staff are fully overwhelmed with work, I would assume. There's not a day you're sitting around that you're not thinking about something. But would engaging a temporary external resource assist in expediting the identification and recommendations aimed at improving the service levels? So if you had an external resource that you can say, just go, I want you to study this and bring it back to me, and perhaps you can come back at budget time next year, with really tangible actions, or we could wait the budget time and we'd be another year before we get anything done. What are your thoughts on that, of getting an external resource that we report to you and help you do some data collections and some analysis?
Thank you, through you to the councillor. Thank you for those kind words as well. I read a lot of magazines and we stay in front of a lot of great ideas, but there is no greater thing than a consultant in this space. So I absolutely would agree that if you have a hard problem like this, the only thing I would temper any consultant group that we engage on this issue. I've had a lot of conversations with consultants around this. In fact, the consultant that did our fire master plan, I talked to him about this very report, and he and I came to the same conclusion. It's the same everywhere in Ontario. It's a challenge. It's a bigger challenge than meets the eye. The one thing that we have to do as fire chiefs is bring the data to council and make sure that council's aware of the issues as they develop. I'm not 100% positive that we will find all of the answers through a consultancy. I read a lot of fire master plans. I see a lot of ideas. A lot of the ideas that I'm seeing that are being proposed out there are staffing. They relate to staffing in some capacity in these facilities, and staffing has extra challenges that need to be fleshed out with more data, in that there's costs involved when you staff some of these trucks, and or even if you pre-staff. So let's say you have a Cranberry Festival, for example, is a great example. We know during Cranberry Festival, we'll get a few extra calls in Bala during that period. So we have our members pre-positioned vehicles, and even the vehicle that people see at the prevention in our tent on the end of the road, that vehicle is ready to go. It knows that it has to go for medical calls, and there's members there that are ready to complement that truck and go to calls. So we have done a little quasi version of staffing. Now you'll see us even do better. During all of our public education events, we always have what we call a call crew truck assigned at the fire hall. So we are starting to staff up in order to trim down that time. One thing I would highlight, because this data is really important for you to look at, we do mention when we look at fires that occur, response times per incident type, and you look at the fires that occurred late at night. I make mention in the further part of that let me find it here. I think it's page, it would be on the same page as chart 5. And it talks about response time per incident type. And it talks about, sorry, I actually lost my place here. I wanted to highlight the fact that when we looked at the calls that were occurring late at night, and it had a long response time. I think it was 32 minutes. When we took away the things that, to the mayor's point earlier, were hard for our members to respond to, false alarms, wires down calls, those kinds of things that we think we can actually make some headway on, we saw that response time drop to 24 minutes. So when and we're not saying selectively look at the data, but how do we drive out those call types? Maybe that's another answer for ourselves. And that's what we're kind of presenting to committee right now, is taking a look at, do we add more fees when it comes to hydro lines down? Do we put staffing on for more of these events where we know we're going to have more calls? That hopefully that answers some of what the councilor's asking. And I've tried to initially answer that, yes, a consultant would help, because possibly there's some ideas we haven't considered.
Just to summarize what I think, I think that this is a report that is giving us some data. What I think is important is this is looking back as well on old model, and through your leadership, trying to advance the service delivery, either through the fire station master plan kind of guiding principles on that. And this allows you to be a bit more analytical in how you are managing. I'm hearing a big part of this is the people, is how do we recruit the right people at the right time and place, and how do we find different ways to help motivate them? And that this is giving you a bit of a, I'm not going to say starting point, but a really good lens as to how we might be able to get a better outcome from a people standpoint. Is that a fairly good summary?
Absolutely. You
Okay.
nailed it.
So I feel like Councillor Roberts, did you want one more comment? Okay, or question? And then I think we'll take a break after that, unless anybody else has their hand up.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing, thank you very much, is that you can do more data mining, but you already have your ideas on how we can improve. And it's in the area of, as the chair said, in people. We just, so that's, we don't need to hire an external, we just got to solve those problems. And, and I think we will see a reduction in service level.
Thank you.
Okay,
Councillor Kent, I did see earlier your hand was up. Did you have any question or comment before we take a break?
No, my question was asked by somebody else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see any other hands up at this point. I do want to thank you. That was for information. So thank you very much for bringing forward and having, as always, a very kind of in-depth responses, which is helpful for all of us. So thank you very much. Committee will take a break. It is, let's come back at 20 to 11, please. Fire Chief Morrell, I'd like to welcome you back for item 9B, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, good morning once again. The report that stands before committee this morning is a needs assessment for fireboat service for the Skeleton Lake and 3 Mile Lake areas. This does contain a recommendation. The committee directs staff to proceed with the development of a trailer-based fireboat service model, which would be a pilot project for the Skeleton Lake and 3 Mile Lake area, utilizing the fireboat that will be retired out of Foots Bay upon its planned retirement in 2029. The report highlights for committee where there have been instances of, incidents that have occurred on both Skeleton Lake and 3 Mile Lakes, and then dividing them into both fires and rescues. The report also highlights a risk profile, an incident history, a risk assessment overall, and makes a recommendation that a fireboat be implemented. One omission or one error that happened in this report, and I do apologize, myself and the CIO went over this morning. When we were preparing the report, we should have put another header at near the end for alternatives. Staff thought they had addressed it within status quo, rescue only, and fireboat, but there should have been more alternatives provided to committee. In absence of that, I do expect some questions around that piece. I now stand for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee, there is a resolution, but I would like to ask at this point if there are any questions. Councillor Nishikawa, Mayor Kelley, Councillor Nishikawa, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. And through you, I'm just trying to get a better handle than I have on what medium impact, high impact means and how that differs. I see there's different categories of use, land use, but is it just come down to that?
Okay, thank you.
Through you to the mayor. Yes, so the 3 Mile Lake has been classified as a medium impact due to how many things that are around that lake, but a low probability fire risk area. The Skeleton Lake area was classified as a high impact and a low probability fire risk area. The probability comes into place for likelihood, which takes a look at past incidences that have occurred in that area. And the impact has to do with, are there things that are on that lake that would be impactful to the neighborhood if they were lost? And I really have to caution before I say this, everybody's house is valuable and every life is precious. However, sometimes to a community, losing a marina when you only have one marina, that can be very impactful to an aquatic area. Sometimes to a community, a resort or a gathering place that has religious significance can be very impactful to an area. So those are the kinds of reasonings that come into place when you look at medium impact versus high impact.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. There's a lot of information here, and what I'm finding, what I'm used to is that we only have had supported fireboats when, in fact, a community group donated them to our halls. One of the questions was, had that ever occurred on these lakes? And then I'm challenged when I see a $500,000 number that I don't want to put something in place that I'm quite frankly strangling the future with a proposed $500,000 bill. So I just want to make sure that that would not be part of the resolution at all, or that there was ever any direction that we were going to go spend $500,000 in the future for these two lakes. So.
Okay. Was there a question? I just want to make sure that yes, there is. Okay, too.
Yeah, through you, I'll address the second question first because I think it's the easiest one to address. There is no, the way this recommendation is worded, this would be a pilot project for the Township of Muskoka Lakes to put into place and then see the results of the project. It would be based on an asset that we would retire in 2029. That's the recommendation. there was put into the report monetary values of replacing that boat should council at that time, because the plan is run the pilot project in 5 years' time, report to council, maybe annually if council so wishes, about the project and about how it's performing. And then council makes the decision to lock it in, for lack of a better term, in the ENR bylaw, the Establishment Regulating Bylaw, as a service that will be provided forever. So any recommendation made to council or committee today would be just to do the pilot project and bring back to committee and council the results of that project. So it would not be for the full $500,000. The first point that the councillor made had to do with fundraising. Thank you very much, councillor. I'm glad the councillor's here. It had to do with fundraising. So we did look at the history of that lake, of one of the lakes, sorry, Skeleton Lake. The Skeleton Lake Cottagers Association, in conjunction with other cottagers in that area and the fire service of Raymond, did raise funds in the community and got themselves a rescue boat. We are aware that there was a rescue boat. It existed from, I think that's highlighted here, from 2005 to 2009. And it looked like when we only really had one individual to talk to about how this all worked together. It looked like the reason that it was pulled from service had to do with two things. Maybe it was 2014. I'm trying to remember where it is in the report, but it is in the report. Give me a second here. I liked it better. I liked it better when we used to give headers to our reports, but we've stopped doing that, and that's part of my problem finding where I'm at. Financial context. I know that it's in here.
Are you looking for the fireboat history?
Yes.
It's right under background. It's the
Oh, it's in
third,
the beginning.
it starts at the third paragraph.
There it is. Sorry. Thank you very much, Chair, for that. During consultation, so we did consult during the fire station location study. It was brought up that there had been a fireboat in that area. We consulted several firefighters and made a phone call into the former fire chief, and the former fire chief has yet to respond. But we did learn that the vessel was a rescue Zodiac, 14-foot long. There were 2 documented fire reports, so 2 incidents of note where it was noted in the fire report using this vessel. Both were water rescues on Skeleton Lake. The Firefighter Association bought the vessel and provided services from 2005 to 2014. In 2014, many federal standards regarding workboats, including liability and high maintenance costs, were developed. There was a gradual change in vessel inspection procedures. If a boat was classified as a commercial or a workboat, other than pleasure craft, it became under stricter Transport Canada inspection and certification rules. It was shortly after this time that the vessel was removed from service. This also was highlighted at that time by the members that there was belief that there would be more training required for the firefighters in that area to operate that boat. So that is what the history of fundraising in that area. So the history of fundraising would indicate that there actually is an appetite for fundraising for a rescue boat in that area, but the fireboat was removed from service in 2014.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz, and then I think Councillor Edwards, do you have a question after? Okay, so I'll do Councillor Zavitz first, please, and then Councillor Bosemarth after that.
Good. Thank you, and through you to the chief. What an interesting discussion. Having had our whole lives in Torrance, looking at the fireboat bobbing at the dock week after week after week, and it being sensitive to its usage. Do we have a 2-part question, if I might, please, Chair? Mm-hmm. First of all, do we have trailers for any of our large Stanley, what seem to be permanent water fireboats? Can we move, for example, could the Torrance fireboat go to 9 Mile Lake because there's this horrific something going on? Can we move them, or are they like stationary, tied to a dock?
Thank you.
Through you to the councillor, no.
Okay, so Okay, so thank you. And so to that end, wondering about, for example, you talk about a test here at 3 Mile and Skeleton Lake. I mean, can we pull one of the boats, one of the large boats out of the water and have it be on a trailer and actually have it stationed instead of on the water, be stationed on the land in close proximity to where it is, but we could move it up to if there is a fire. I mean, we witness every day, Pride Marine or, Walker's Point or whatever, moving 30-foot boats, bam, throwing them in the water and they're gone out of Torrance, for example. We don't do that, or we don't seem to have that mentality. And yet I do read in your report, 25 minutes from Port Carling to Skeleton Lake launch is 25 minutes. I mean, I get that. But, if the Torrance boat ever went to Port Carling, for example, it would take, it takes me as fast as I can go 30 minutes to get there. So have you contemplated moving our larger boats, and or are you limited by just simply not having a trailer?
Okay.
Okay.
Through you to the council. Maybe it's not clear in the report, but that is exactly what this report is asking for. So the capital cost that would be asked for is for a trailer, for the trailer to support the vessel that is currently Marine One, which is in Foots Bay, Stills Bay. It would be placed on a trailer outside the Windermere Fire Station, and it would respond from that location, being pulled by an appropriate 3/4 ton rescue truck, because these are all the pieces that you have to work out, to two known landing spots, one in Skeleton and the other one in 3 Mile Lake, to facilitate the fireboat needs for both of those communities. The larger boats, just as a second note, the larger boats are very hard to trailer. They're not as easy as putting them on a trailer and then taking them off in rapid succession due to the weight that is on those boats. We could buy larger trailers that would allow us to do that. We would then be taking over a launch, which most of our launches are quite busy in the summer season when we have an incident. So we'd have to get in there and drop the boat and then get out of there. I think the approach that we're currently taking today is a prudent one, in that we have the larger boats on the water ready to go. Keep in mind, the reason they're heavier is they have a couple different engine types on them. They have a pump that supports pumping water, which that pump alone is usually in the neighborhood of about 500 pounds. Plus they have 2 other portable pumps, and each of those weighs about 300 pounds, plus the weight of all the gear. So we have firefighting gear, hoses, and all of that. So the trailer that would support that would be a very expensive, large trailer. The trailer we're looking at in this report would support the smaller of all those 4 boats, which is the Foots Bay fireboat, and it would need to be pulled by a vehicle that would be positioned close by. So hopefully that answers the councilor's questions.
Okay. Councilor Zavitz, did you have a second question?
I did, thank you, if I may, and certainly it does answer the question, and B, I would certainly understand, that we're looking for a trailer here. Anyway, I just wondered about the larger boats and how we use them.
So, I think, okay.
If I can, specifically, I think we addressed a lot of the use of the larger boats in a previous report where we were evaluating adding another boat to the big 3 lakes. But
Right.
For the councilor, we talked about at that time the distance from that it takes our members to complement the boat, and then what the boat can provide in terms of services on all those water access properties on those lakes. I think the key determinant is to look at how many water access properties or properties that only would receive service from a fireboat is kind of one of the driving factors why you look at a fireboat positioned on a lake. And when you look at that, I think we provide data. I know I provide data in this report about how many of those properties are located on Lake Muskoka, Lake Joseph, and Lake Rosso, and what kind of services are provided from those larger fireboats. Because it is a little different from our rescue boat that is also talked about in this report. The smaller rescue boat is smaller. It does not have a pre-positioned pump. It is not a floating platform like a floating hydrant, which is one of the benefits of our larger boats. It is more of a rescue boat, and it shuttles people and gear back and forth from shore.
Okay. So Councillor Edwards, and then Councillor Bosworth, and then Mayor Kelley.
Yes, thank you, and that through the chair. The fireboat that was on Skelton Lake, do you know what happened to it?
Unfortunately, through you, I do not have any asset.
Have any record of it was being sold or just what happened to it?
Unfortunately, I do not have any record.
Like, I was looking at your report on page 40, when it said there's approximately 1,200 dwellings, which is about 12% of the township total dwellings. And the average property tax would be about 1,367. Is that just a municipal tax or the whole tax? Because when you multiply that by 1,200, there's a fair bit of tax being generated there, and yet they don't have the service that they provided a boat for. And that's why I'd like to see something come back at some point. I'm sure if we talk to the lake associations, they may chip in something for it, but when they've given a boat and it's just disappeared, like, it would be nice to know what happened to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you to the counselor, I'm not quite certain what happened to the boat, so I don't know if it truly did disappear. I'd have to look into what the sales were, or perhaps the asset was sold. I'm not quite sure what happened to it. We can dig deeper on that. I don't know where that'll land us because I couldn't find the licensing or any of the information about the trailer and those kinds of things. I don't even know if the township truly ever owned the boat. It may have been owned by the association of that group, but I can dig in a little deeper if the counselor would like. In terms of what the counselor is asking about the assessed value, this is based on September 2024. The average assessed value of a property in Muskoka Lakes was $778,000 with an average annual municipal tax contribution of $1,367 per property. So it was an assumption that this many cottages on that lake, 1,200 cottages times that amount of taxation per property, was how we ended up with some of those other figures that the counselor's noting in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to find out on that, because I was asked by somebody from the Skelton Lake Association and that what did happen to the boat. So it'd be nice if we could trace that thing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Boseworth, Mayor Kelley, and then I think I see Councillor Roberts.
Chief Morale, we've had two major studies, the level of service study, and we had the fire location study. And I was just wondering how this recommendation fits into those, because to me, I can't quite understand how that fits in. We've had a certain number of fire boats. We had them for a long time. This, to me, looks like a change of level of service.
Thank you.
And through you to the counselor, this would be a temporary change of level of service. A pilot project would be how you would deem it, but it could become a permanent change of service. Absolutely. So to answer that question, the fire master plan did not make any mention of our fire boats. In fact, I think they even missed on mentioning the fire boat house, which we have one of those in Milford Bay. And the way that we would rectify that in the future is in a future fire master plan, we would ensure that the consultants know to address that key component of our service delivery. In terms of our community risk assessment, which is a driven, regulated document that we have to promote or provide to the government, it was mentioned in there that there's a lot of water bodies in Muskoka Lakes, and it was referenced that we should keep a water and rescue capability for all of our lakes at present. Council has done really well in supporting the fire department as we brought 2 initiatives to this body over the last 6 years. 2 rescue boats have been purchased to help facilitate that need for our 44 inland lakes. And one is positioned in Mala and the other one is positioned in Port Carling. Those are on trailers and those are ready to go, but they're not a fire boat because they do not have an in-body pump. Hopefully that answers the question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, I have 2 quick questions. We talk about, and this really is relating to something that Councillor Zabitz raised about pulling a boat out of the water in one place and dragging it out to another place. 25-minute response time or drag time, essentially, by the time you, the time adds up so quickly. I mean, you've got to detect the fire first. You report it, you assemble, you drag a boat out of the water and hook it to a truck, you haul it up 25-minute up the road to Skeleton Lake, then you get in the lake and you got to go find the problem. I don't want to be crass about it, but is there not some time point where you're just too damn late? And if you're too damn late, we don't want to spend a whole lot of money to just be a little bit less late, but still too damn late. If 40 minutes is the outside timeline, I don't want to spend a nickel to get the response from 49 to 44. We're still too late. So that's number one. I'll let you talk to that issue.
Through you to the mayor. So let's take a look at incidents. You called them problems. That's a great way to look at them, because the fire department is looked at as the catch-all. So there's three major incident types that you set your fire department around. Fires, you try to get there. Unfortunately, and I'm going to look at the camera because there's probably a lot of my colleagues that'll be watching this very clip. Unfortunately, in the province of Ontario, due to the fact that it takes the majority of fire services in the province of Ontario about 12 minutes to get to a property, we know after 4 minutes it's a one-room involvement, and we know that insurance doesn't like covering a lot of the things in that property after about a two-room involvement. So we start to get into a loss of a property. But really, it goes back to the age-old reason why the fire department exists is to protect the property next door. It's actually to prevent a conflagration fire. Go back to the Chicago fire and some of these fires that happened where we didn't have great development standards, where we kept separations and barriers and building code and all that good stuff. So if you're not there within that first timeline, you're basically protecting the property next door. The thing that we have that's unique to us in Muskoka is we also have wild vegetation in between these properties, which can light on fire, is easily ignitable. Certain times of the year, it's worse, and it can actually spread the fire, and that can actually spread to other cottage properties. So our hope is to get to these properties, prevent them from becoming a wildfire, which anybody here can talk to anybody that's had a cottage catch fire here. They see us originally arrive, protect those exposures. That's what we call exposures around the main property, and then deal with the main property. When we talk about saving structures, when we go to a fire, we talk about those outbuildings and those other exposures. And I know it's small consolation to people that have lost their property, but the truth is you're on 3 Mile Lake and your response came out of Fort Carling, and that's what it looks like. Rescues. So rescues are a big one. So if we can get to a person that is drowned or is being recovered out of the water within a golden hour, we call it the golden hour, and all of the other parameters are perfect, we can have a really successful outcome. And we had one of those this past year on Skeleton Lake. We had an individual who all of the stars lined up. There was a paramedic in the water, brought them to shore. 2 of our firefighters boarded them with EMS attendants promptly on scene from Huntsville. Everything went perfect. And we got that individual to the care that he needed. And people were very surprised that he survived, in that he probably wouldn't have survived if that had happened right outside a hospital in downtown Toronto. So it was just because of that expert care that was provided immediately. So golden hour for rescues. And then spills. So spills are an ever evolving thing, and we're seeing more spills on these lakes due to how many humans are using the lakes. It is imperative that we try to protect the environment. And a lot of what you see us do out on the water is get out there, boom a spill, control the spill, address the public concerns about where they're taking in their water, and quickly address that problem. So these are kind of the 3 big things. In a spill, you basically have about 3 to 4 hours to get on before, so you can determine exactly what it was. If it's a fuel spill, oftentimes it'll dissipate on its own. It'll either dilute in the water, but it is something that we want to be prompt on. So the mayor is quite right. The only reason we get there is basically to protect the property next door, but still with that mindset, the 25-minute window is still helpful. And one thing that isn't mentioned in the report that I just want to highlight for this body, because it came out of discussions that the CAO and I were having, getting across Skeleton Lake is a lot faster by way of boat than it is driving all the way around. And currently, when we drive all the way around to service those waterfront properties on that northern shore, which there's quite a few more of them now than there was even 5 years ago, that prompt response is actually is something that we look forward to. And the other thing that isn't mentioned as much in this report is because there's a pump on this boat, it becomes a floating hydrant. So it becomes our water source. So it's already pre-contained and ready to go, versus having 3 or 4 firefighters, which we've had firefighters get injured, walking down slopes with a 400-pound pump to get the water source to supply back up to us. It's a very unglamorous job to sit there all night next to a pump while all your buddies are up there fighting a fire and getting their picture in the paper. You got to sit next to a pump next to the water. It's a lot cooler if you're in a floating fireboat. I'm not saying that's a reason you choose a fireboat, but
I have one more question and you've led me right to it. 50 years ago, people with remote access properties, water access properties were somewhat self-reliant. They would buy a gasoline powered pump. They would train 3 or 4 neighbors to know where it was, how to use it, presumably maybe even how to fight a fire with it. Is there any way, you know, nowadays, I even think on our Cottage Road Association, there's one of those IED paddles for people. Can we leave a dump of pumps from place to place, maybe store them in somebody's ground floor lounge of a boathouse? And but basically, can we strategic be a heck of a lot less expensive, and we'd be a lot more nimble in terms of getting there by boat, by one of these lighter trailerable boats. The equipment is there waiting for us. A dozen of them, half a dozen of them around the shore of a moderate sized lake. Some training and some relationships with local people on how to at least get the thing out and set up and pumped and primed so that when we get there, we can use it. Can we split the firefighting apparatus from the actual tool that we use to get there, the boat, and still get some decent coverage, or is that just crazy?
Through you to the mayor, we do use that. We do have that tactic on Severn. So on Severn River, we have pumps that we own that are pre-positioned on that river, body. However, we do know over time that that is a risky proposition. We've gone to fires down there and had people attempt to use the pump and they didn't engage. The training, once you get into the training and you start training somebody, they de facto become a quasi-employee. And if we can't maintain that training, then there is some liabilities that come back on us. I'm sure that with waivers and stuff like that, we could probably move that liability off of our shoulders. The problem becomes if it isn't checked on a regular basis, that equipment becomes a little bit more of a, it's far simpler to have a fire department, have them well equipped and have them attend with the training that they know and have them perform the duties. It's not me trying to say this isn't something we wouldn't do. It is awkward at best to work with seasonal residents to get them to that level. But it is something that some fire departments have done. They have to have lots of waivers and a lot of forethought. So it'd have to be something we'd bring to our legal department.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Have we read the resolution? Just
No, this is
no,
questions.
okay, I have a comments.
Okay, are there any other questions? I just want, oh, Councillor Edwards, a question? Yep.
Yeah, you brought a good point, saving the neighbor's building. We have setbacks from side yard that are 15 feet on either side, so that puts them 30 feet. Now, when we start moving closer to the lot line, say 5 feet from the lot line, so are we putting more risk on the neighbor if there's a fire? Because I've never seen that in a report, and you just brought that up, and that with it, like, should we be looking at that?
Okay.
Through you to the councillor, I would have to take a closer look. I'm not quite sure what we're commenting on a regular basis on those development plan applications, but it is something that I make mention of to my people, is that spatial separation matters. And I think you would have seen that in the Bala Bay Inn report, where we talked about protecting that egress point on that one side of the building. The developers there addressed that with us, so they are going to protect that egress point because they have an external exit. So when we're asked, we do provide that comment, but I'm not quite sure. I would say, you know, I had this discussion this morning with the CAO. I'm sure he will not love that we're reiterating all of this, but when you talk about access points into places in Muskoka, that is a challenge as well, like driveways. They're not as well promoted here because oftentimes the property at the end of the road is built as a seasonal property, and therefore it is exempt from the building code in terms of having a driveway that will support a fire apparatus. We are trying to catch up with that and let people know this is a driveway that could be problematic, and we serve those folks with letters saying, you know, here you go. So that is a challenge, and setbacks can become a challenge if you're looking at like a resort property where you had an original dwelling or an original building and another original building, and you want to build those buildings new. I think setbacks need to come into place in those situations so that we have more control on what we know might happen. Call it the fuse effect. This might happen, that might burn, this might burn, that might go.
Okay, so I just want to try and keep us focused to speak. I'm sensitive to the topic that we have at hand right now. And I just want to ask if there's any other questions before I read the resolution. I personally have just two quick questions. The first is I just want to confirm that simply because we did probably a year ago have somebody else come, I think it was on Lake Muskoka, with a very similar kind of request and thought. And I think very much it was the focus that this was never a recommendation that came through our fire master plan to add any kind of extra boats into our and I just wanted to confirm that as the first comment.
Correct,
question.
except it was in the CRA that we should maintain the level of boats that we have. So in the community risk assessment, it was in there to maintain the number of boats that we have for fire risk. But it was not to add new ones. You're absolutely correct.
Okay. The second thing I wanted to, it just actually came, I can't remember who asked the question, but it made me consider the fact that half of, or a good portion of Skeleton Lake actually is in the town of Huntsville. And I'm curious if they have any supplies or tools or resources that have been considered.
So thank you for that question through you. The back half of Skeleton, or we'll call it the top half, the northern half. So if you think of Skeleton as shaped like so, this part is served by Highway 3 or Road, Muskoka Road 3. We can get to most of those properties. Most of those properties are in the township of Muskoka Lakes. We have agreements with Seguin that will cover half of 3 on one side, and then Huntsville comes down and covers the other half on our behalf. So what happens is we both get paged to the call. Whoever gets there first engages the fire and starts to work on the issue. And then when the other fire department that actually it's in their jurisdiction gets there, they relieve them. On the top half, where I think you're discussing where Lucky Road comes across, that's actually the responsibility that we share with Huntsville. Although the properties are in Huntsville, we take on that responsibility because our fire stations are actually closer to get to that area. So we have discussions with Huntsville on a regular basis, and there have been occurrences where we put out fires on the lake that are in their area, and it's absolutely it's through a mutual aid agreement that we do that. So currently today, they do not have any water-based assets on that lake either.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Zavitz has a question.
Thank you. Just expediting through you to the chief. Do our fireboats have to adhere to the underwriter's insurance scenario? Through tanks, right? They hold water, or do they just move water?
I'm just waiting for the chair.
My apologies. I was getting some coaching on next steps. Sorry, could you ask that question again, Councillor Zavitz?
Yes, very simply. Do the fireboats that we possess have to adhere to the underwriter's criteria for insurance that we just passed yet again on our land-based vehicles? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Through you to the councillor, no, there's currently no standard for a fireboat. However, the tank that you're referring to is the water body that they're in. So they do not have water. There is no tank of water on a fireboat. It's drawing the water from the water body that they're in. But the pumps themselves, we do test those annually, and they do meet the intended flow rates of 500 gallons a minute minimum on each pump. And that's so they get the NFPA classification for NFPA Class 5 fireboats. So when people ask what kind of fireboats we have NFPA Class 5 fireboats. But they do not have to meet a fire underwriter's standard.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read the resolution and then I have a potential amendment. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Kent, be it resolved that committee directs staff to proceed with the development of a trailer-based fireboat service model for Skeleton Lake and 3 Mile Lake, utilizing the Foots Bay fireboat upon its planned retirement in 2029. And the amendment that is being recommended, just based upon some of the conversation at least, was to strike out the word service model and replace it with as a pilot project. So now that I've read the resolution, I'd like to have a further conversation discussion. Councillor Nishikawa, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment, or I would be very concerned. I guess more importantly, I feel like there's an education that is needed, just even around our own table, about how the current fireboats that we have came to be, and as well as the implications if you were to take a fireboat out of an area that was fundraised by a community to say, well, it's ours now, we're just going to put it wherever. I don't think that's ever been this council's direction, but I would be very concerned moving forward that we were going to have conversations about taking a fireboat out of a community that fundraised for the fireboat. And in fact, are still willing to give more if needed be. But I don't think that our council should be discussing moving fireboats when others
Okay.
have donated the money for it.
Okay, so specific to this resolution, though, the possibility of a pilot project for Skeleton Lake and 3 Mile Lake. That's what we're going to focus our conversation on right now. So I have Councillor Roberts and then Mayor Kelley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think I suggest as a comment through to the fire chief or just confirmation. When I was at the meeting in Raymond, where the individual stood up and said, "What happened to our boat?" And at that time, there wasn't a lot of knowledge on it. I know Chief Morrell did a deep dive in this and on this subject, and I learned information today that basically what you have found out is that it wasn't going to meet any more. It wasn't going to achieve the standard that was required. So I can just sort of assume and go forward that that boat was disposed of somehow. And I think that's suffice to say to anyone who has a question. I'm taking your valuable time, in my opinion, and trying to find out, how much we got for whatever happened. I think that the person that's asking the questions, they would be, be happy with that answer. I wouldn't be going down to see where the hell it was sold to. So that's my personal comment.
Mayor Kelley?
Thank you. And through you, I just want to follow up with Councillor Nishikawa, because my understanding, I think, is that there is no moving a boat from one dedicated location to another here until that boat is at the end of its natural service life in 3 years. We're in the process, as I understand it, of repowering that thing right now. We proved that in December or October. And presumably it will be replaced at the end of its normal service life. And instead of selling it off, I think what we're proposing to do is move it up onto Skeleton Lake. I don't think we're moving anything or redistributing anything that has been donated.
So I would like to try and keep our conversation focused on the current resolution, because I think that what this has sparked is, and similar to last year when this conversation comes up, is there's a service delivery that is currently happening. It's your responsibility to ensure that that service delivery that is agreed upon by this body continues to be delivered. So a boat is not leaving, a fire truck is not leaving certain locations if that compromises our ability to do that.
Correct.
What is before us today, and I'm glad that Councillor Roberts brought this up, it was a question that came up in one of the town hall sessions during the fire master plan location study about a boat that was there probably 10, 15 years ago. And just a question, what happened to that boat? That has sparked the possibility of in the future, a possible pilot project that could contemplate adding, quite frankly, a service to a community. And I think that's what's really before us today is that something that in the future we would want staff to be considering or contemplating? Is that fair? Am I summarizing this correctly?
Through you, correct? Just a few massage points. I believe what the resolution was directing staff to do was analyze the service delivery model of a fireboat on Skeleton Lake and looking at the past history of a boat that had occurred there.
Great.
And
Okay.
that's why this report.
So this is why this is before us. It wasn't something that you were coming forward with. It was a direction that this body gave you to say, explore the possibility. And you're coming back to us with the possibility, aligning it back to any of the master plans. So this was not something that started there. I'm
Correct.
confirming
Yeah,
that.
it
Okay.
came out of the discussion through the fire station location study.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Kelley?
And thank you. And through you, and with all due respect to you, I don't think this is an additional service. We're not adding service to an area. We're replacing a boat that used to be on that lake, servicing that lake, and nobody can seem to find. But still, I don't think this is, and I think we need to be careful that we are not actually, increasing the level of service. We are actually coming back to where the level of service was before the phantom boat disappeared.
I think I heard that comment earlier today. That's why I'm bringing it up, is that was what I think I heard from our chief, is that it would be changing the level of service in the future, possibly.
In order to lock that in for the future, Chair, we would looking at the ENR bylaw and being very specific about the services we provide in those regions. That would allay a lot of these fears and put them to rest. Here's a service that we provide and here's where it's provided. Here's a service that we provide and here's where it's provided. As it stands right now, to Councillor Nishikawa's point, we are not taking away a service. We will be adding a service to Skeleton Lake that the people in that region believe had existed at one time, and that through our anecdotal conversations with firefighters, we were told had existed at one time.
Okay. Councillor Bosenworth?
Thank you. And so, sorry to belabor that point, but my understanding was the boat that was on there was a rescue boat.
Correct.
And that the boat that will be coming to it is a fireboat with a built-in pump.
Correct.
And that is a different level of service.
Correct. For the evaluation that was done. Correct.
Right. So it is a change of service.
Correct.
I guess what I fear is that 5 years after the pilot, or when the pilot ends, we're in for another $500,000. And that's a significant hit, and it is it is a change of level of service. Today we can get a rescue boat there quite quickly, and rescues have a longer lead time than fires to be effective. And so we've already have that service. We're just providing it in a different way. And once you have a boat, it will be a very difficult decision to not have a boat. So we're changing our level of service, and for that we'll have to find a bunch of money to do it, and it will be 2 councils from now. But it is a worry that I think about.
Okay. Mayor Kelley? And then...
Thank you, and through you. And my concern is if we are amenable to increasing or improving the level of service on that lake, then we're going to have every lake in here asking, and every pond and puddle. I mean, at some point we have to draw the line, and that's why and I understand there's a difference between a rescue boat and a fireboat, but to me, the level of service is maintained. We're trying to maintain the same level of service, assuming that boat that everybody thinks has gone missing was there performing fire services at some point in the recent past. And that's the answer to somebody who's coming in saying, well, my lake needs a boat too, or whatever, is we have pretty much set in stone the level of service that we deliver. And in this particular case, we're replacing a boat, admittedly that we don't know where it is, with something comparable to do the same job that it's been doing all along. We're not improving. I'm trying carefully to sort of avoid being seen as increasing a level of service, or we literally will have 15 of these requests.
Okay, Chief Morrell?
And if I can help just to provide balance, because if this was my money, this is an often question that comes from councillors off camera. If this was your money, what would you do? This approach would be what I would do. The pilot project only asks of council for, I believe it's $7,000 for a trailer. It uses a already existing asset that we will be retiring in 2029. It relocates it to a spot where we can try out the service, and then using the datum from that to prove out whether or not we replace it with a rescue boat. A rescue boat that had been there before would cost us in the neighborhood right now about $65,000 with a trailer. This would be a cheaper alternative to prove that service, and then in 5 years bring back to council and committee, here's how that service is performing. That would be the approach that's the balanced approach that I was trying to go for, staff was trying to go for. But I completely understand the argument of augmenting service, and I completely understand the cost implications for the ratepayer in the future. So I stand at the will of council.
Okay, thank you. So I have read the resolution, and it has been recommended through an amendment that we could change the language from service model to be replaced with as a pilot project. So how do I Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the amendment. I'll read the amendment first. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that the word service model be struck out and be replaced with as a pilot project. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Nishikawa?
I'm concerned with the full resolutions that in fact it still is showing that there's a service level change. Because this boat has not been in operation for many years. And so therefore it's a service level change, I feel, that was not going to get captured in the pilot project change.
Any other questions or comments on the amendment as I've read it? Okay, I'll call that question. All those in favor? 6, all those opposed? Okay, that carries as the amendment. Now I will go to the main motion as amended, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that committee directs staff to proceed with the development of a trailer-based fireboat service model as amended to say as a pilot project for Skeleton Lake and 3 Mile Lake, utilizing the Foots Bay fireboat upon its planned retirement in 2029. So I will call that question. All those in favor? All those opposed? So I think that carries. That carries. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Well, that took a while. And I can't blame this on Councillor Burry. Okay. Councillor Burry, if I could kindly ask for you to take the chair. I'm going to be recusing, so if you could take the chair, please. Thank you.
Good morning. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. The report before you today is the updated wharf agreements for Windermere and Beaumaris. They are both attached in the appendices of the report. Of course, they are different in nature, as in Windermere, we plan to phase out the seasonal permit usage, while in Beaumaris, we plan to maintain the historic seasonal use of that wharf. Some of the highlights obviously include clarifying the uses of the wharfs themselves, a little bit more in terms of guidelines and process for seasonal permit renewals and development of a waiting or expression of interest list for those wishing to seek a seasonal permit in the future. Since the agenda package which was published, we have received some public feedback as it relates to the Beaumaris Wharf Agreement, all relatively minor in nature, and it would be staff's intent moving forward before council in 30 days to bring back a redlined version with some of those minor suggestions or changes, mainly around wording and language. Again, just with that ultimate goal of maintaining that historic use of this wharf. It is quite unique, and there are lots of pieces to the puzzle to make it work correctly. With that, Chair, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. I see Councillor Zavitz first.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Corey. I guess my question is one process. So you'd indicated that for Beaumaris, very specifically, you would be bringing back a red line document to next month's council, so March council. Would we not want to stick at in GNF as here we are in GNF, and you're bringing back recommended changes, thus the red line? Why are we expediting right to council? Is that a time thing because it starts May 1, or is that just because we think, well, I don't know. I'm going to let you answer that.
Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair. Yes, it's more of a timeline thing to get this up and running for this season. The changes themselves, staff have no concerns about the intent of the process and the rules and how the wharfs will operate. Because they are more minor in nature, just slight language suggestions, changes, we're comfortable with that process moving forward.
Supplementary?
Thank you, Chair, through you. So to that end, what happens to our public process when the redlined revised Beaumaris Wharf Managers Agreement shows up on the Friday before the Wednesday of council? What happens to the 30-day pause where everybody gets a chance to have that sober second thought? Is that, I mean, you're obviously expediting it. Fine. That's just okay, I guess.
Mr. Moore?
Yes, I may defer to the clerk if she has any thoughts on the process. Staff are certainly at the will of committee. Should they wish it to come back to general finance, we can certainly take that avenue as well too.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through you. There are a couple of options. So if you wanted it today, if you wanted to see them come back to general finance, I would recommend that you postpone this resolution so that it wouldn't come back until next month. But again, I'll refer to Mr. Moore. If that did happen, I think you would be putting this season at risk. So that was kind of you would lose the 30-day period. You're correct in kind of the sober second thought that we like to call it. But I don't believe that these are substantial changes. And that they're a little bit more minor in nature. So staff felt that if they were brought forward at the council meeting, that they could be addressed. Again, if something changed at that point, you could send it back to committee then, and you'd kind of be in the same boat as if you postponed it. So I think staff are just trying to make sure that you're protected in keeping this season going, as well as that the changes are fairly minor in nature.
Thank you. Councillor Kent?
Thank you. And through you, it's really for discussion with Corey. One of the comments I made at the last meeting on this subject was the fact that practically what happens if you have an island owner who has a spot at the Beaumaris Wharf, for example, and they sell their property, that spot that the current owner uses at the Beaumaris Wharf would typically be given a first right of refusal to the new buyer. Okay, and I don't see that, or I didn't think that language got into the agreement, and I think it's a very important point because the primary issue is the people who have the spots now losing their spots and then not being able to get a spot anywhere else because there's so little landing capacity anywhere, if any. So I was wondering what happened to that suggestion and whether that was something that, I mean, that's something I'd like to see in the agreement where the person who is the future buyer of the property has the right to take over the spot. Otherwise, you're putting them at risk of getting in your line of, you say you got to keep a list of people who've requested interest and they end up at the bottom of the list.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr.
Yes,
Moore?
through you, Chair. That was one of the comments we received from the public as well. Admittedly, I had hoped, I think it's section 2H that I had covered that, but that would be one of those situations we'd hope to just prefer or add a little bit of clarity to, for sure, just to make sure that's understood.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful and it would cover a lot of future problems. Thank you.
Agreed. Yeah.
Councillor Roberts?
Thank you, Chairman. Through you to Mr. Moore. Just want to confirm some numbers. In Beaumaris, we had the numbers, not the exact numbers, not. We have a historical use of just property owners that are using the docks. We do not have, like we have in Windermere, leased commercial slips.
That's correct.
And then the second confirmation I'd like to make is that in Windermere, there are 16 boat slips which are currently leased, and that 8 of them are islanders or non-commercial, I guess I'll say. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so I'll save it for after the reading of the resolution.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa? Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. I see with the manager in Windermere on page 58 that they get 40%, and then it goes to 50%, and then it goes to 60%. Why are we upping that? Why aren't we putting it out for tender? 40% has always been the standard. We've just spent what, $460,000 on docks, and now we're giving our stuff away. There are people that would take that for 40%. Why are we going to 50 and 60%?
Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair. Happy to clarify that request from the wharf manager. The thought there was over the 3-year phase out period, the number of seasonal permits would start to decline as people find alternative spots. As such, the revenue would also start to decline. And the thought was that by a tiered percentage approach, that they could still maintain the revenue level to maintain the operation.
Supplementary?
We have raised the daily rate, have we not? And weekly rate, monthly rate?
That's correct, yes.
So if you have an islander who gets for the season, gets it and that, it's probably more expensive for them to rent weekly or monthly so that they would be getting it, and we raise the fees. Why are we giving away basically 20%?
Mr. Moore?
And staff are certainly up to the will of committee there. Should they wish to have that part renegotiated, we could certainly entertain that.
I'd like to make a motion on that because, like I say, I know the marina used to handle it and they were happy with 40%. So,
Councillor Nishikawa's put up her hand to second it. Is it appropriate for me to read the main resolution? With your consent, I will read the main resolution moved by Councillor Edwards and seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the wharf manager agreements as attached as appendices 1 and 2 to report OPS-2026-003. Are there comments? Councillor Edwards?
well, I would like to make a motion that basically the wharf manager in Windermere gets 40% the way the other wharf managers get, and that. And if not, we should put it out for tender.
Councillor Nishikawa?
I wanted to comment that I would be happy for this to come forward to council next month with the red line changes. But I also agree that all of our wharf, it should be 40% across the board. Thank you.
I sense there's general consensus that we don't want to hold this up for the redlining, that we will have enough time to be able to do it, and staff are confident that we can do it. I'm pretty sure around the table we don't want to jeopardize this season. Madam Clerk, we've got an amendment. We're going to take a 2-minute.
Chair, if I might.
Yep. Councillor Zavitz.
You're speeding through there. We're talking about the fiscal arrangements. There's also a concern, I wanted to raise it prior to any vote or comment, that I believe in Beaumaris, there's a recommendation of a 4.25% increase, annual increase in the fee of the slip of the rental, if you will, for its term. I wonder if Corey could speak to that and where that came from, or the logic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zavitz. Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair. In the report, there's no recommendation regarding that. Those numbers within the financial section are there for information purposes, basically highlighting how the use of the seasonal permits in Beaumaris help to eventually repay for the dock itself come the end of its useful life. The 4% itself, I may defer to Director Donaldson as to that piece.
Director Donaldson?
Thank you, Chair. So the 4.5% was an estimate based on the 20-year historical non-residential building construction index, which basically tracks how much the inflation is historically related to lumber, concrete, steel, those types of things. If the intent is for the agreement and the and for council to have the users of the wharf pay for its eventual replacement 20 or 25 years from now, then the costs of the slip fees would have to keep pace with the rate of inflation of what the materials would be to replace it. If that bends downward, then we could adjust the rate downward, but we'd have to keep monitoring of that to ensure there's enough money in the reserve when replacement is required.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz, a supplementary.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that through you. Well, then, should we not set the real number? I mean, that clearly it's a fictitious 4.25% times so many years, which seems like an exorbitant amount of increase per year. So we either need to rationalize that or justify that and or craft that into Councillor Edwards' resolution. I don't know, in terms of picking a number of 2%, 1%, whatever the percentage is, should we not also craft that? Otherwise, we're at the mercy of poor Mr. Moore here, who's deciding on whether it's 4.25 or whatever it is. I mean, I guess 2, I don't know, cost of living, whatever that is. Is there any appetite for that? We can't just leave it. Thank you.
Well, I think we can leave it because it's not in the policy. Director Donaldson?
Chair, if I can just add, so again, to Mr. Moore's comment, it's really there for illustration. That's a 20-year historical. Like we do in other cases, we can look at the annual actual cost of inflation on non-residential building construction material and adjust it accordingly on an annual basis when we do the budget. I think the point is, though, that up until the change we made in the fees and charges bylaw this year, which saw a very significant increase, which there had not been for several years. I think the real message here is there is going to have to be annual indexation of that slip fee to keep pace with the cost of materials that will be required to replace it ultimately and at the end of its lifespan.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Sorry, and if I may just add on to that, and those fees are reviewed every 2 years. We'll review those, right? So.
Councillor Kent?
Just a supplement to that, I thought in our last discussion of this, Mr. Moore, that the intention of there's 2 intentions. One is to cover the cost of replacement down the road, which is like a long-term sinking fund. The second was to make sure that the islanders who were accessing, in particular, the Beaumaris dock, were not getting a special benefit. And therefore, the fees were supposed to be consistent with what they would be paying anywhere else if they needed a spot. So I don't see that I thought was the more important of the 2, which is we raised them substantially this year in the agreement, and then we would continue to raise them to stay in line with third-party agreements so that we weren't benefiting one group over another, which I think is completely fair. If we're making it available to these guys and giving them a ability to continue to sell their properties, these are all benefits that go along with the fee increase. So I didn't think that was in there anywhere. The market assessment.
Mr. Moore?
Through you, Chair, and it won't be in here. That process will take place when we do a review of the fee and schedules bylaw every 2 years. I believe it was last month we discussed this a little bit as well. But that process has already taken place for this upcoming year. So that would have to take place again in the future, or if staff are directed to review that bylaw earlier.
Councillor Rosenworth, you haven't spoken on this.
Yes, thank Councillor Kent for raising the same point that I would like to raise, is that I think it's important that, and we can maybe should reflect it in the resolution, but I think it's important that these fees should be raised to market rate for exactly the point that Councillor Kent made. But I am happy if it's understood that that is an open option when we review the fees every 2 years. But I don't want to lock us into saying we're going to adjust with inflation and then find out we can't decide 2 years from now that we might want to move things to market rate. I think the principle of having market rates is a good principle because we don't offer this service to anybody else.
Mr. Moore, comment?
Through you, Chair, I think staff have certainly understand that and are clear on that. And if the committee is okay, when it does come time to review that, we can ensure that that process is undertaken. If we feel we need it added into the resolution, we can certainly do that as well too.
Yep. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Just because this resolution is specifically on the wharf agreements and the fees for the seasonal permits are done through the fees and charges bylaw, I would prefer to keep them separate because they are two separate matters. If you want to pass another resolution on that, we could, but I think staff have heard loud and clear that review needs to be done. I would just say if you want it done, in the next few months, we probably need direction on that. If not, it'll be done as part of the normal process that we do. But in terms of these agreements, these wharf agreements, those fees aren't identified in here. They're identified in our fees and charges bylaw.
Councilor Bosemarth?
I'm happy to leave it. I will not make another resolution.
Councilor Roberts?
Thank you, Chair. We'll probably have a resolution request after this, but in Windermere, we have a phase out of leases over a 3-year period. Yet we have approximately 8 properties that are similar to the Beaumaris properties, that they are cottagers. There are some, I understand, some people that are not within the Windermere area that are leasing. But for the individual properties that are using it and have historically used it for slippage, I think we should treat them the same as we have with the Beaumaris and Beaumaris properties, just to be fair. So I'd like to propose a resolution that staff return with an amendment. It doesn't have to be for next month, but on the Windermere, that we treat the Windermere properties that are similar to the Beaumaris properties in the same way, and the fee could be mirrored off of what we are doing for Beaumaris. So I'd look for a seconder on that. It doesn't have to come for next council. I don't think, Mr. Murray, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's something that.
Yes, through you, Chair. That is the nice thing about the 3-year phasing, is it does give us time. Currently, to date, we haven't heard any concerns from those users regarding this change like we did in Beaumaris. That was quite clear. I think what we had heard through the public consultation in Windermere was a strong desire to have more transient use at that dock. We could either entertain that option as you've suggested, or we could take a more wait and see approach and see how this year goes and see if we do get similar pushback. But that is the nice thing about the 3-year phase out is we can always return, and we know we have now a model in place in Beaumaris that we can duplicate. So,
thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. I just want to note for a resolution, just because, again, that resolution wouldn't have to do with these wharf managers agreements. They have to do with the policy that came forward a month or 2 ago. And I would just need to go back and look through the minutes, because I think at this point, you've made a decision on that matter. It's been ratified. So I don't believe that you have the authority at this time to put a resolution on the floor, because it hasn't gone through the 3 months on a decided matter. So if we could chat about it offline, it's not that we can't deal with it, but I just, because I do remember it happening recently, I don't believe that we're outside of that 3-month period. So I don't think there would be authority to put that on the floor at this time.
Councilor Roberts, a comment?
Yes, just a comment. Yes, I'm just anticipating that there could be a firestorm of the 8, and that we should get ahead of it. And so I'm fine to bring it forward at a future date. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Kelley?
I don't need to make my comment now, thank you. Based on the fact that my point was that in my recollection 3 months ago, the part of the decision at Windermere to phase out the long-term parking was that it was the rationalization for not extending docks in Maple Leaf Bay. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And so if we're going to go and reopen all of that again, we can consider your issue. But if we back off from that motion, and again, it was just, I think, literally the end of summer, early October, something like that, that we passed it. It was linked to the decision on whether or not we needed to extend docks, rebuild docks in Maple Leaf Bay. And the theory was if we didn't have the long-term parking, we wouldn't need them. It wouldn't need to do that.
Councillor Bosemore?
Thank you. And to add to Mayor Kelley's point, the parking, the docking at Morris is decades old. The parking of seasonal at Windermere, I believe, is not.
Okay. I'm not sure that matters. Yeah. Yeah, at the clerk's recommendation, I'm going to read a substitute resolution. So moved by Councillor Edwards and seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that the resolution be substituted for the following. Be it resolved that the wharf manager agreements attached as appendices 1 and 2 to report OPS-2026-003 be referred to the March Council meeting to allow further changes regarding A, terms within the administration of the seasonal permits at the Beaumaris dock, and B, revenue sharing with the wharf managers be capped at 40%. Are there any comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Oh, and we'll vote on the main motion as substituted. All in favor? Thank you. That too is carried.
Thank you, Councillor Burry. Now we will move on to item 9D.
Thank you, Chair. Today's report is regarding our arena staffing levels, and it highlights a proposal from staff to convert our current one winter seasonal contract position and our one current summer seasonal contract position into a regular full-time position in the arenas. Currently, we have these two contract positions, and there is a slight gap between the two of them, typically during the month of April, of about 2 to 4 weeks, depending on a given year, depending on the dates of holidays, etc., and when the ice comes out. The two positions, sorry, I'm just losing my track here of where I am. Yes, there's a slight gap between the two positions themselves. Due to the contract nature of the positions, there's often lots of time spent hiring for these positions and staff time spent training of them. And that is the main reason behind the proposal today, is to eliminate that staff time. Additionally, due to the contract nature of the positions, it also affects the recruitment talent that we see. Whereas if we were to have a full-time position in the arenas, we're typically attracting a more experienced individual that can assist with building maintenance, etc. That way. Majority of the increase in the summer usage is over the years. We've seen an increase in pickleball usage, starting right up at the beginning of May now, operating 7 days a week out of both facilities, often both facilities at the same time. So definitely a need for 3 positions over the summer. The cost conversion works out to approximately $25,000 to make the change, and staff estimate about half of that would be saved from staff time associated with hiring, training, etc. Yeah, and I think that summarizes it, Chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Committee, before I read the resolution, are there any questions? Seeing none, moved by Councillor Bosemore, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that committee approve 1 seasonal position and 1 summer seasonal position be converted to a regular full-time position in the arenas as highlighted in staff report OPS-2026-005. Did I say winter? So winter seasonal position and one summer seasonal merging.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments, committee? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thanks
you.
very much, Mr. Moore. And I believe we are now moving on to Mr. Cox.
Morning again, Madam Chair and members of committee. So my report this morning provides an overview of the results of the Community Improvement Plan Private Sector Incentive Program since its adoption in late 2021. Since this adoption, the program has invested just under $340,000 into the community, which has enabled a total investment of over $1.2 million within the 2 community improvement project areas. There is a more complete breakdown of program use in the report for your reference. This report also recommends 2 major policy changes in order to strengthen the program outcomes and align the private sector incentive program more closely with the township's strategic priorities. Specifically, this report proposes to both reprioritize the existing program streams and also institute a formalized scoring system for applications. Taking together, these 2 changes will both reduce the number of applications that are overall recommended for approval, but ensure that those applications that are recommended are those with the highest levels of community impact. Should committee endorse this recommendation, staff will return with an updated policy once the housing-focused update of the community improvement plan has concluded. That concludes my remarks for now, but I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committee, I do have a resolution, but I will ask for questions. Councillor Zavitz, Councillor Roberts.
No, thank you. Through you. I know it's a broken record, but I just have to, for the public record, indicate that for the last time, I guess, in my term, I'll be asking yet again to James, do we have any interest in amending the border of Bala to include up to and including Moon River Road from where it is now at essentially the post office? Because we've wiped out about 4 of the biggest businesses in Bala, and they've never been considered for the CIP and continually remind me of that. So I'm speaking for them, please. Thank you.
Cox.
Through you, Madam Chair. So there's a few things I'd like to note, specifically the housing-focused update to the community improvement plan that is currently working its way through the approval process at the district level would apply township-wide. So there, if that program is adopted as anticipated, then there would be community improvement plan programs that are available throughout the township. The question of the boundaries of the CIP that was last looked at, I believe, in early 2024. Council's direction at the time was to maintain the current boundaries, and that is the way that the plan stands right now. But certainly the community improvement plan it's council's document, and should council wish to direct staff to re-examine the boundaries, we can certainly do so.
Okay, thank you. I think I have Councillor Roberts, I have Mayor Kelley and Councillor Kent. So I'll just go in that order.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Cox, there were 10 building accessibility and facade grants and 7 building structural and mechanical upgrade grants, totaling approximately $285,000, which represented 84% of the total value that was allotted. I have 2 questions. Very generally, with that group, how were these grants used by the recipients? And the follow-up question to that is it possible for you to provide insight into the possible value realized from this grant expenditure?
Okay. So through you, Madam Chair, with regard to taking the programs in turn, with regard to the building accessibility and facade improvement program. All of 10 of those grants were facade improvements. We haven't received any applications related to accessibility improvements since the program was adopted. The facade improvements that have been funded through this process have varied in sizes, ranging from minor beautification to the front of properties that are the properties in question to a full reconstruction of the facade. But they've all been facade improvements of to varying degrees. The building structural and mechanical upgrade program, which funds a variety of expenditures mostly related to ensuring that the building stock within the community improvement areas are up to date, they're energy efficient, they're usable year round, those sorts of things. That tends to be more varied. Of the 7 approved grants, we've had 3 that were related to energy efficiency, HVAC upgrades, furnace upgrades, things like that. We had 1 grant that was specifically focused on improving insulation and energy efficiency in a building to make it more usable year round. We've had 2 applications for structural improvements, again, focused on making sure that the building is usable year round. And 1 was approved for electrical work, I believe, within the building. So a variety of expenditures there. In terms of the value that's realized by the investments, that is, I would say, somewhat of a subjective analysis. I would say that the community improvement plan is premised on the idea that any investment within the community improvement project area that advances the policy goals of the plan itself is a benefit to the community. So even those upgrades that are not necessarily as visible as a large-scale facade improvement do have value with the goals that are laid out in the CIP and also in the township strategic plan. So providing a grant to improve energy efficiency in a building that may not have a clear public-facing benefit, but it does align with the township's stated objective of improving environmental sustainability and things like that. So I would say in terms of the value, everything needs to be looked at through the lens of the stated program objectives.
Okay, thank you. I think I had Mayor Kelley next and then Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I like the work. I like what you're doing here. I would like to know whether this can be used as a tool to target / incent certain businesses to come here or to stay here 4 seasons as opposed to 2 seasons. And specifically, as it relates to Port Carling, I'm thinking about food services, restaurant businesses. Is there sort of the latitude to make a tranche available for somebody who runs a business but doesn't have it winterized and wants to take some cash and stay longer, stay year round? Or in fact, attract somebody new to a community and use this as a way to prepare them or allow them to see their way clear to staying through the winter?
Through you, Madam Chair. So my answer to the question would be yes, I believe there is. Certainly the availability of community improvement plan incentives is a key part of sort of our business attraction and retention efforts. It's something that we highlight to any business that we're talking to, that we're trying to help overcome challenges and stay operational within our community, and also any new business that's looking to come in. Certainly, I think that with the policy changes that are being proposed by this report, there is the opportunity to put some criteria in there that would prioritize, again, the year-round operation of businesses, so that any applications that we receive for support from a business in that position would be prioritized accordingly.
Thank you.
Could I just quickly follow up on that? To the year-round piece is a great priority. Is there an ability to target a sector, i.e. food and beverage service?
That's correct, Madam Chair. We certainly could. When we're putting together the scoring criteria that we've referenced here, we don't have those criteria developed yet.
Okay.
So if there are certain key sectors that we've identified that need support, those can be prioritized.
Okay. Sorry, I just wasn't sure if that connected to that. Thank you. Councillor Kent.
Thank you. and through you, I guess one of the just discussion points I've had is since the beginning, I've always never really understood the money that's been spent on the CIP. And there's, we haven't used it all. So it's not being accessed fully by the community. So it's sitting there. And the lack of funding available for the community grants program. I love the community grants program. I find it horrible that we have to cut those people back. And it's such a small pool of money that's available that, in my opinion, would be utilized fully if more was available. And it's.
So is there a question, Councillor Ken?
The question is, or for discussion, I guess, we can wait till after the resolution, is would we ever consider shifting some of that money from one pool to another pool? I know that's radical thinking, but just raising it because one doesn't seem to be used and one seems to be in great need.
So I think it will be helpful if I read the resolution, because I think that's what's before us today, not how different programs are getting funded. So let me read the resolution and then you can come back and be the first to make a comment again. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare and update policy CFS-18, Community Improvement Plan Private Sector Incentive Program, in accordance with the direction outlined in staff report DSES-2026-008, and that the updated policy be brought back to committee for approval at a later date. So now I'll bring it back to the comment. Again, it's not really focused on the resolution that's before us today, but.
Well, I would just make comment that I have no problem. I like the changes that we're making in this resolution. It would be maybe, I guess, for future budget discussions, which is we should consider, and maybe we should bookmark it now, that consider shifting funds to places where the need is really obvious. And I appreciate anybody else's comments on that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That sounds great. Thank you very much, Mr. Cox.
Thank you.
We are now moving on to item 12A under new business, and that goes back to earlier today, the delegation matter on St. Thomas Anglican Church. I believe there was the request that we waive fees for committee of adjustment up to the 50%, which in my recollection is to the tune of $700. And there was further discussion about other funding opportunities that this organization could contemplate, one of which is through our current grant program, the community grant program, but the possibility of other streams through the district and maybe other organizations that would help with the accessibility component, the construction piece. So I think the specific request for us here today was, are we interested in waiving 50% of the committee of adjustment fee? So with that said, I will go to Councillor Edwards first, then Councillor Nishikawa, then Councillor Kent.
The original ask was for the full amount.
Okay.
Okay, that was the ask. There was a consensus at the committee of adjustment that it be waived and given back, but we didn't take a vote on it because our CAO and that Mr. Pink asked, it said it could also come to council. So we figured that was the way to go with it, which is fine because committee of adjustment has waived fees before. And that, so it wasn't something new, but because it was for the community, if we had the community improvement plan and it was in it, we would have given them money for it because it's basically getting the public in. It's not for them, just for themselves. It's not like a person improving their property for themselves. It's for the community. That's why I would recommend giving the whole amount back. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. Through you, essentially my request was going to be similar to Alan's. So that resolution, however it gets read, I was going to ask for the full fee to be reimbursed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts, did you have your hand up? No. Councillor Kent, was your hand up? No. So I'm hearing that there's two people that have put forward a resolution. So if you could just give us a moment. Okay, here's the resolution. Hopefully this captures Councillor Edwards and Councillor Nishikawa. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Whereas committee received a presentation from Sharon Creasor regarding a refund request for a Committee of Adjustment application fee. Now therefore be it resolved that committee approve of the request and refund St. Thomas Anglican Church and Cemetery, Ullswater, Bent River in the amount of $1,400. So are there any questions or comments? Councillor Bosenworth.
Just to staff, how have we handled these requests in the past?
Okay, Director Huff.
Thank you through the chair. So my understanding is that similar requests have come forward to the Committee of Adjustment in the past. However, with the passing of the new fees and charges bylaw, there's language in that bylaw that maybe makes it less explicit that these types of refund requests can go to Committee of Adjustment. Instead, it actually directs them to council. So that's why there may be a change in process relative to what's happened in the past.
CAO Pink.
Thank you. I can just further add to that. There were changes in the fees and charges bylaw. I also think it's most appropriate that council as a body makes those financial decisions. I'm not sure if the Committee of Adjustment is the appropriate, and hence that direction to committee and why it's here today. I think further to the question, typically these requests do come up periodically at Committee of Adjustment, and typically where there's been a clear error made by the municipality or staff, and that necessitated an application. Committee has contemplated a reduction in fees. That's typically been the reason.
Are there any other questions or comments on this resolution? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed? 2, 3. Okay, that carries. Thank you very much. And I would encourage exploring other options too, maybe to help fund construction. Looking at you, Councillor Edwards, but I heard some interesting options for the church today. Moving on to item B. Somebody's going to talk to us about pothole prevention and repair program.
Oh.
Okay. Yes.
So-
Okay, Director Colucci, go.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the township did apply for the pothole prevention program, and we received funding. It's $38,000. So this is just so that you know that we're going to get this funding, and it will be applied through our operational budget to add a little bit more to the pothole prevention program that we already do.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you. I think this is it's nice to see the commitment to actually applying for grants and then actually seeing that there is some success anyways, modest as some of them may seem, they do add up. So district, are there any questions for our district councillors or any comments from our district councillors? I am seeing none, so thank you. I'd like to move on to community events. I see Councillor Roberts and then Mayor Kelley.
Thank you. At the Milford Bay Community Center this Saturday is the Valentine's Tea. Just throw that out for anyone who's listening, and it's an enjoyable time to chat and meet with your neighbors. There's a community event that was held last week, and I don't know whether the mayor was going to speak to it, on the welcoming for Dr. Martin. This was only possible because of a few years ago, my colleague on the right had the thoughts of getting a nursing station in Port Carling. He connected with Brock Napier and they put some substantial funds, and there's other funds come for the community that we had a place to house health things, which was just I just came across when I attended this session, was just wonderful. We had a gem and we could attract people. So it goes out to everyone. Also the team or the people. I know Mayor Kelley, you had a big hand in this, and I think Councillor Mazan, you did as well. There's probably others, but it's a great asset and a great success story for the township of Muskoka Lakes. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, welcome, Dr. Martin, to our community. I think it was Mayor Kelley, and then over to you.
Thank you, and through you really quickly, Winterfest Lions Club, Bailey Street from Hannah Park to 118 is not this Saturday, but the following weekend. I believe it's the 21st. Same day, that afternoon is a fundraising event for the Muskoka Lake Snow Trails Association, the Snowmobile Club. They've done a remarkable job. They've done an extraordinary job cleaning up after ice storm damage, opening trails. I don't think they've ever been in better shape. And they're having a fundraiser at the Bass Lake House. I believe it's 11 till 3, if I'm not mistaken, but I plan to try to get to that one as well.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Just on an event that happened on Tuesday at the Valentine's Lunch in Raymond, raised $1,400 for Andy's house.
Oh, wonderful.
So thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Any other comments or? No, seeing none. We don't have to go into closed. So one left. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 12:17 p.m. And the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, March 11th at 2026 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? That carries. Mayor Kelley, would you like to start at 1:15? We will